Hokage I can fully level up with one click. Chapter 501-520. Chapter 501-Genius Rotten Streak Domineering becomes cabbage. Boom. The violent conqueror's haki was madly compressed by Rayleigh and turned into a galloping horse, pouring it into Chinyu's mind. Chinyu just felt a roar in his mind, followed by an ethereal system prompt, which sounded abruptly. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for learning Conqueror's haki, whether it is full level with one click. The long-lost voice made Chinyu's face show a hint of joy. He didn't think much about it, and he immediately gave an order after thinking about it. Immediately one click full level. Ding dong, please wait a moment, host. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, Conqueror's haki has successfully reached the full level with one click. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, Armament haki's realization is successful with one click. 2 consecutive system prompts came out, and a warm current poured into Chinyu's mind like a tidal wave. Boy, why didn't you respond anymore? Wouldn't you become an idiot? Seeing Chinyu who didn't respond at all, Rayleigh couldn't help but startled. He has tried this method several times. Every time someone takes the shock of Conqueror's haki, they get a headache. After all, this is a scouring of the spiritual level with the help of the powerful domineering outsiders. It feels like rubbing your face against the ground. Torn pain. However, now Chinyu's indifferent attitude makes Rayleigh a little unsteady. However, this thought just flashed in Rayleigh's mind, but what caught his eye was Chinyu's eyes that suddenly opened. A massive Conqueror's haki exploded like a frenzy. It turned into a Category 12 hurricane and swept away. Bonnie, who was the first to bear the brunt, was stagnant at first, and the next moment, her whole body was overturned, and she flew backwards. Standing close at hand, Rayleigh, with a sudden change in expression, hurriedly shaved and quickly swept back. However, he just walked 7 or 8 meters away. A crisp cracking sound suddenly sounded. One after another shocking, cobweb-like cracks spread rapidly with Chinyu's feet as the center. Jinchuriki columns, whether made of wood or concrete, even cracked. The violent scene made Rayleigh's face suddenly change greatly, and he shouted in a hurry, "You kid, don't wake up soon, are you planning to shatter this auction house?" Feeling this terrifying aura, the figure of Yuhifa flashed in Rayleigh's mind. Originally, in Rayleigh's eyes, the most domineering person on this sea was probably Yuhi Shanks. However, at the moment when Chinyu betrays Wang Ba's domineering arrogance, this view is likely to change. Cough cough, I'm sorry, just woke up a little bit uncertain. Chinyu coughed dryly, and turned back to the gods, just in time to signal Armament haki to incarnate. Armament haki incarnates. Rayleigh couldn't help but startled, and then said with a dry smile, "Boy, you may be lucky to wake up Conqueror's haki." But Armament haki materialized, thinking about Master, do you really think that this is street cabbage? In the past, it took the old man 4 or 5 years to find out on his own, as for you. Speaking of which, a smile appeared on Rayleigh's dry bark-like cheeks, and when he took out the bottle and took a sip of wine, the sight made his pupils shrink. He was addicted to alcohol, and he sprayed the spirits all the way. However, in the face of this scene, he is in no mood to care about it now. With one step, he shaves and crosses more than 10 meters to Chinyu's side. He looks at the black ink in his hands. At the time of the domineering sharp blade, his face was full of disbelief. Now he can't wait to give himself a few big mouths. An instant, he can awaken Conqueror's haki and embody Armament haki. Is he too stupid to ride the horse, or is he a genius, and his domineering has turned into cabbage? Thinking of this, Rayleigh couldn't help but look back at Bonnie. The scene he saw made him feel relieved and heaved a sigh of relief. I saw that Bonnie was also shocked by Chinyu's actions. Looking at her slender hands, she choked Yuhi's face, unable to hold back even the slightest armament hockey. In the end, Rayleigh stared at Chinyu for half a minute, and finally spit out 2 words. Monster. However, before Chinyu could respond, hurried footsteps came madly outside the door. Guessing from the sound of footsteps alone, there are definitely thousands of people. The time is just right, but it's time to make the world famous. Chinyu smiled warmly, patted the dust on his body casually, and looked at the 3 Tianlong people lying on the ground. Outside, the huge Chambord archipelago is already in chaos. The incident that the largest population auction house was attacked on island number 1 quickly spread throughout the island like a wing. The world's aristocratic Tianlong people were attacked, and in their eyes, riding a horse was killing themselves. However, what caused them the most neuralgia was that the 2 generals happened to appear on the Chambord Islands. Thinking of this, many people have the mentality of watching a play in their hearts, and they rushed to the population auction house. For a time, in addition to the Navy soldiers who blocked the front and rear doors of the population auction house, there were also the eyes of all forces hiding in the distance. Even some reporters stationed in the Chambord archipelago to catch fresh news have also arrived. Looking at this scene, Huo Shaoshan and Bastio's faces turned a little blue. The current situation means that the Tianlong people are attacked, but it cannot be contained. The future is coming. I don't know who exclaimed, instantly tense everyone's nerves. All eyes turned around, and in front of Huo Shaoshan and Bastio, endless golden light appeared out of thin air without warning. The next moment quickly condensed into a burly figure. The yellow and white suit and the robe representing justice, on that wretched face, were a pair of small glasses. However, compared to normal days, there was a hint of gloom on Kizaru's wretched cheeks. As soon as he appeared, he turned his attention to the locked auction house and said, "Is that guy inside?" As soon as these words fell, Bastius and Huo Shaoshan reacted quickly and responded in a hurry. "General Yellow Monkey, the great skeleton demon is inside. It's just that he held 3 Tianlong people hostage, and I'm afraid he will ask for some conditions to negotiate." Dragon people. Huang Yuan raised his brows, remembering the celestial dragon boat on the pier, and immediately snorted coldly, saying, "Those rubbish, it's really not the right time to get in the way of us catching people. Waste." Looking at the cynicism on weekdays, the 1010, Chan oil-based Kizaru actually said such a thing, which obviously subverted their cognition of Kiwi. However, before Huo Shaoshan and Bastio opened their mouths to remind, a low voice came from behind. "Kazuna, I know you're in a bad mood, but don't forget, those guys are Tianlong people. The first duty of our generals is to ensure their safety. Please pay attention to your words." Chapter 502 The Army of the Dead is here. For Huang Yuan, when he thought of the last time, Shan Chengshui Yuan ran to the advanced city prison for interception, and was blasted into the water by a face-to-face. That feeling is simply suffocating. If it weren't for a famous rear admiral, he would have been knocked down and launched into the water one step earlier. I am afraid he would have to find someone to sweep the grave now. However, as Akainu said, the identity of the Tianlong person is clearly in front of him, and he is in a bad mood, but he must also pay attention to his words. Most importantly, in front of the people under his command, he can't just destroy his own character. Thinking of this, Kizaru's face filled with the usual abusive expression. With his mouth crooked, he said slyly, "Yo, it's all a joke, Akainu, don't take it too seriously. However, this time, we really can't let that kid escape. Otherwise, the 2 generals of the Navy headquarters are here and let him slip away under the nose. That would be a big joke." Seeing the Kizaru who was restored to the original design, Bastio hurried forward and said, "General Kizaru, don't worry, the great skeleton demon is still inside. However, according to the time I stayed by his side, that guy seems to have come to Chambord Archipelago on purpose. Let us give time to inform the 2 futures, as if he has some intentions. Having said that, Bastiu suddenly remembered an important thing, and said anxiously, "By the way, the former One Piece deputy, Pluto Rayleigh is also inside. Will they join forces together? That old guy is also there." Akainu's face sank involuntarily, and then he said disdainfully, "Although it has been mentioned in the eyewitness report, Pluto Rayleigh often appears in the Chambord archipelago, but I didn't expect that he would actually collusion with the skeleton demon. However, if this is the great skeleton demon, challenging the majesty of our naval headquarters, it will probably disappoint him." When these words fell, many people in the field nodded silently. In their eyes, the two admirals represent the highest combat power. As long as one of them stops Rayleigh, the other frees up his hand and takes down the great skeleton demon. "General Akainu, you are right, so are we going to do it now?" Huo Shaoshan quickly agreed. This time, he was responsible for guarding the safety of the Tianlong people. Right now, the fate of the 3 Tianlong people in Qin Yu's hands is uncertain. How can Huo Shaoshan be able to calm down? "No, now is not the time, let him come out first, otherwise he and Tianlongren will be inside, we can't predict what will happen." Akainu declined indifferently. As soon as these words fell, Akainu's eyes fell on Bastius and said, "Go and shout." "Me." Bastiu couldn't help but stunned for a moment, but the senior official crushed him to death. Facing Akainu's orders, he could only bite the bullet. Taking the loudspeaker handed over by his subordinates, Bastius hurriedly raised his voice and shouted, "Ains Court, the great skeleton demon, the 2 great futures you want to meet are here. Please hurry up and release the 3 royal family members of Charles. Otherwise we will attack." Quote. Having said that, Bastius couldn't help but look back at Akainu and Kyabu. Under the satisfied eyes of the two, they secretly breathed a sigh of relief. However, this breath was just spit out, and the next moment, a dull crashing sound suddenly came out in the auction house, which instantly tensed Bastiu's nerves. This is the dull footsteps. As a vice admiral, Bastius may not be very powerful, but his experience is still very deep. As soon as I heard the footsteps, a crazy picture flashed in my mind. Doesn't he intend to release those monsters? Bastiu looked at the door of the auction house in a panic. In the face of this inexplicable speech, everyone in the field couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. S. brows furrowed, and he said in a deep voice, "Bastiu, what are you talking about monsters? Is there something that even our Navy elites can't deal with?" Admiral Akainu is right, there is a gathering here, the elite of our Navy, and the most advanced rocket launchers. Even if it's me, we can kill with one shot. Huo Shaoshan echoed in a hurry. Yes, it would be right to burn Yamanaka, we are the strongest elite in the Navy. There are 2 generals here, and we are invincible with double the combat power. What monster, can't stand our saliva alone. The hurried shouting sounded together at this moment. Bastius, who witnessed this scene, hurriedly tried to explain. However, the scene that caught his eye made him swallow the words that came to his mouth. Boom! A dull crashing sound came from behind the closed door. The huge impact made the iron gate tremble at first, and the next moment, as if it was hit by a giant beast, it sank with a bang. Before everyone could react, a thunderous roar exploded in an instant. Boom! The heavy iron gate, like a sandbag, was knocked into the air and smashed directly into the open space of dozens of meters. The huge impact made the square paved with heavy floors shattered and cracked. The dust and debris kicked up, and the sight of the scene made everyone's pupils shrink. Some Navy soldiers almost split their eye sockets, and some even lost their breath and exclaimed, What is this? Is it a monster?" Boom! The dull sound of footsteps came suddenly, and hundreds of Mukuro soldiers stepped out in a neat square formation. With every step, the ground shook like a drum. But this is just the beginning. The gate of the auction house was originally only more than 3 meters high. In an instant, he was suddenly clenched by a big white hand, and the next moment, without any expense, he was shattered abruptly. The huge door-like body directly smashed the door at the moment of stepping out. Followed by a skeleton warrior with a height of more than 3 meters, wearing armor and holding a bone knife glowing with black light, stepped out. Woo-hoo! The sound of a horse whistling like a wailing and wolf howling suddenly came, stepping on Yu Yan's hooves and stepping out from behind the door. The floor, which was already precarious, shattered and opened. The flames on the horse's hooves splattered like fireworks. Huge, nearly 5-meter body, with the skeleton warhorse under his crotch, the armored undead knight galloped out. The sharp horns, the rotten face, the deep-set eyes, the glittering secluded flames. It gives the impression that the whole body exudes a dangerous smell that penetrates the soul. The heavy giant shield that is close to 3 meters, the big sword in his hand like a door, and the undead breath released with him. The ground that passed along the way was quickly corroded, and the surrounding flowers and plants were killed by the quick reading, and withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Looking at this scene, Bastius just had a thought in his mind. The army of the dead is coming. Chapter 503 The King of Deductions appears. In the huge square, only the sound of heavy footsteps echoed. Whether it was the navy or the people around, looking at the scene in front of them, their expressions were completely stiff. All this was completely beyond their expectations. That kind of bone-chilling cold, terrifying image and face, makes people feel like their scalp is tingling. In particular, the body size far exceeds that of humans, and it brings a strong visual effect. If I had to use one word to describe it, it would be a head start. Bastiu, what the hell is going on? Talk to me. Huo Shaoshan's face sank, and he roared anxiously. The large number of Mukuro soldiers in front of him might not have given him much pressure. However, the skeleton warriors and undead knights who appeared later brought more than just visual impact. There is also the pressure of death urging life. As a lieutenant general, he may just feel tricky. But for the rest of the navy, it was a fight against death. Huo Shaoshan calmed down. Akainu's face sank, and he shouted sternly, "In the report sent by Magellan, we already knew that he has the ability to create unknown creatures, but we didn't expect that his ability can still reach this level. To a degree." Quote. However, if you plan to fight against our naval headquarters by these means alone, it would be a fool's errand. For Akainu, these monsters have terrifying faces, and they also possess a breathtaking aura. But as a general, with the ability of devil fruit, he couldn't resist a punch at all. If one punch can't solve something, then 2 punches. However, as soon as these words fell, Bastiu, who looked terrified, stammered and cried out in a hurry. No, these are just his appearance skills, the real horror is still to come. Facade skills. Everyone present was stunned, even Akainu and Kizaru were no exception. In their eyes, this death army is beyond their expectations. Now Bastius told them that there were more fierce ones behind. What could be more frightening than the huge monster knight that was nearly 5 meters away? However, just as this thought came to mind, the next moment, a terrifying aura exploded like a frenzy. Roar. The sound of the dragon's roar, like a cloud-piercing cracking stone, rose straight into the sky of the 9 heavens. Huge sound waves poured out of the auction house with a rolling gesture. At a time when everyone felt the eardrum being torn, the huge auction house suddenly made a low and thunderous crashing sound. The huge roof shattered instantly. A gigantic figure with white bones burst out of it, and a large swath of fishy wind swept up into the sky. The huge body of dozens of meters, the moment when the rotten bones and wings fanned, gave people a feeling of covering the sky. The ferocious body of white bones, the bloody eyes of Yuhi the gorilla, under the bluff of blood. The dragon power that he had in his lifetime swept away like a frenzy. What the hell is this? Is it a dragon? Oh my god, why is there such a terrifying thing in this world? Quote. Terrified voices echoed in the field. However, before they could accept this fact, the trembling voice in Bastius's mouth came again. Also, he not only has a bone dragon. And the expressions of the people present were shocked, even Akainu and Kyabu were no exception. After all, the moment this bone dragon appeared, the breath oppression it gave them was completely close to the lieutenant general. The appearance of a bone dragon may not be able to control the battle. But if there are a few more, the ending will be different. Roar. The three voices of dragon roars seemed to be responding to Bastius's words. Like thunder, all of them detonated. At the moment when the huge body suddenly fanned the bones and wings, it set off a huge hurricane and rushed out of the auction house again. Debris splashed as the sand rolled. Everyone just felt a flower in front of them, and a black piece was cast in the sky, giving people an inexplicable feeling of depression. It seems that at this moment there is an invisible big hand, clenching people's hearts tightly, making people feel like they can't breathe. There was no time to think about it, and everyone rushed to the sky to look at it. Hurry up and take a picture of this scene. 4 legendary bone dragons, the terrifying Death Army, today's front page. I think the editor-in-chief of Morgan's will be very excited first. What is the origin of this big skeleton demon, and he was able to control such a legion? No wonder he dared to stay in the Chambord archipelago after attacking the Tianlong people. The hurried voices sounded one after another in the field. In the face of such means that subvert the world view, it is simply beyond everyone's expectations. However, for the Navy headquarters and others, all this made them look awkward. After all, just a moment ago, Huo Shaoshan boasted that their Navy had the strongest elite troops. But compared to the Death Army in front of him, his cheeks were hot as if he slapped himself directly. This slap in the face, and the horse is too fast. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, who would believe that such a legion still exists in this world? The great skeleton demon has come out. I don't know who exclaimed. All eyes turned to the dilapidated auction house. Bang! Stepping in unison, the Death Corps, who had already formed an array, immediately lined up to face each other, and slammed the sword in their hand against the shield. A deafening roar sounded. At the same time, a large skeleton figure wearing a cloak gradually lit up in the darkness. The soaring soul flames in his eyes brought an inexplicable feeling of mind-blowing. Looking at Qinyu, who walked out step by step, the outline gradually became clear, and the scepter came out. Everyone's pupils shrank suddenly. The scene in front of them gave them the feeling that it was completely unlike the so-called pirates. On the contrary, he is a rank, with an elite army, the king who dominates the world. No. It should be said to be dead. It is a king of the dead, and the king of interpretation is on the stage. The distance of more than 10 steps, at this moment, seems to be very far and long. Everyone's nerves fell with the sound of footsteps, as if being trampled, and gradually tightened to ultimate. When Qinyu took the last step, the scepter in his hand suddenly stomped toward the ground, and the cold voice suddenly sounded. Welcome everyone, I am the supreme ruler of the great tomb of Narisik, Ains Ooal Gong. Today, I am staying here. In addition to meeting with the 2 admirals, there are more important things to announce. Something more important. Bastius's taut nerve strings were plucked again. The moment he met Qinyu's gaze, he couldn't help but burst into a rage. Chapter 504 Someone kills them. Quick, stop him quickly, he is going to kill the Tianlong people. Bastius's urgent cry exploded like thunder. Everyone present has not recovered from the dead army of the dead, and they have tightened their nerves again. In the news they got, the Tianlong people were just attacked and passed out. But being attacked and being killed are two completely different things. As long as people don't die, no matter how much tossing, there is room for detours. However, if the Tianlong people died, the result would be completely different. An unbelievable nightmare for anyone. Bastiu, what nonsense are you talking about? Huo Shaoshan grabbed Bastiu's collar and shouted in a hurry, that's a Tianlong person, a world aristocrat who has survived for 800 years. You actually say that someone is going to kill the nobles of the world, are you crazy? The hysterical roar echoed between the heavens and the earth, as if infused with a magic sound, and there was no way to dissipate it for a long time. After all, in the eyes of anyone, killing Tianlong people will be regarded as the #1 enemy by the Navy headquarters and even the world government. That is equivalent to slapping them in the face and becoming a priority-chasing prisoner. Unless it's a lunatic, it's totally not worth the kill. No, the purpose of the great skeleton demon is to make the world famous. He wants to kill the Tianlong people, which is the fastest way. Bastiu roared anxiously. As soon as these words fell, Akainu and Kizaru suddenly changed their faces. If Bastiu's words are not wrong, it means that the seriousness of the matter will be raised to a higher level. All eyes turned and locked on Qin Yu's body. The moment the two looked at each other, Qin Yu's deep-set eyes, the flame of his soul suddenly soared, and he said with a warm smile, "You finally guessed it right. I am the supreme ruler of the great tomb of Narisik," and the three ants deliberately offended, "What should I be guilty of?" The icy voices spit out, like a magic sound, echoing in the heaven and earth for a long time, and there is no way to disperse. However, before everyone could react, the Death Army lined up in the field, the weapons in their hands, suddenly smashed into the bone shield, and shouted in unison. "Kill!" Words were hesitantly uttered, as if agitating the depressing atmosphere in the arena. At the moment when everyone present was suddenly tense, 3 burly skeletons wearing golden armor came out carrying 3 Tianlong people who were chained and bound like dogs. The arrogance and arrogant expression of the past were completely replaced by panic at this moment. Looking at Akainu and Kizaru in the field, Charles Marco couldn't help but hurriedly asked for advice. "What are you Navy doing? Don't hurry up and save us, we are the world's nobles from Tianlong, if you lose a single hair, you ants will all die. Hurry up and come and save us, I will definitely read your book in front of the 5 old stars, so that you will lose your position as a general." "No, the clothes on my body, you rude monster, don't let me go quickly." One after another hysterical roars came out from the mouths of Charles Marco and the 3. However, before they could finish cursing, they were thrown to the ground by 3 magic skeleton warriors in golden armor. Boom! With the release of tremendous strength, even the fish tank above his head shattered. At the sight of the sight, the pupils of the people present suddenly contracted, and some people couldn't help but take a deep breath. Seeing the dignified Tianlong people being thrown on the ground by a dog and being cut by the splashed glass, their faces were covered with blood, and they couldn't help but rub Yuhi's eyes. This is the Dragon Man. In their eyes, it is a high existence. However, now it has become like a dead dog. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, who would want to believe that the scene in front of you was true? Uchiha Chinyu, hurry up and stop, they are from Tianlong, you want to be famous in the world, now is enough. Akainu shouted sternly. Now, as long as you let the person go, we may discuss 1 or 2 things, just send you back to the city prison, or this will be your burial place today. The awe-inspiring voice reverberated between heaven and earth, but more people rolled their eyes and stiffened. In their eyes, if this counts as negotiation. In the world of riding horses, no hostages will be killed. Hee, I'm sorry, there's an old saying in my hometown, you get money from others and help them eliminate disasters. I'm sorry, but someone bought their lives. Chinyu said lightly. Someone wants to kill them, who is it? Akainu's face sank, and he said, Uchiha Chinyu, I don't know where you come from, but if you want money, our Navy headquarters can give you 10 times as long as you put people let go. If an ordinary person was kidnapped, Akainu would definitely punch him without saying a word. But there are 3 heavenly dragon people in front of him, but he does not dare to act rashly. How much? Chinyu's deep-set eyes, the flames of his soul were throbbing. He suddenly raised his head and met Akainu's gaze. At the moment when everyone's nerves were tense, the words that fell in their ears were like thunder. A Bailey. With a simple 3-word expression, even the 3 heavenly dragon people who are usually high above the sky also showed disbelieving expressions. In their eyes, if someone wants to kill the nobles of the world, they must at least get a sky-high price. Now Chinyu told them a Bailey, that is simply a noble life is cheaper than an ant. Akainu's face sank, and the moment he and Kizaru looked at each other without a trace. The next moment, the anger roared. Go! Hum! The roar of the air suddenly sounded. Kizaru, who was standing beside Akainu, vanished into place like a ghost, as the endless light Madara dissipated. Appeared again, already 1 step ahead, came to the side of the 3 golden armored skeletons. However, before Kizaru could make a move, a cold voice suddenly landed in his ear. Kazuna, have you forgotten what it feels like to be struck by lightning? The crackling thunder arc sounded without warning. A thunderbolt pierced the sky, and appeared behind Kizaru with a gesture of resignation. The big white bone hand suddenly merged, and when it turned into a hand knife, it slashed down towards Kizaru. Before the attack came, an awe-inspiring sound of breaking through the air roared. The golden ape's face sank, and the golden light in his hands gathered together, turning into a giant shield of golden light, blocking it directly behind him, and then roaring angrily. You bastard, the last time you suffered from Heilushi's loss, this time you are not so lucky. However, the roar just started, and the next moment he stammered the words that fell in his ear, but the expression of the yellow monkey suddenly stiffened. Looking at the pitch-black lightning in Chinyu's hands, his face was full of disbelief. Chapter 505 _ Pierce the Sky. Sorry, I've learned armament hockey. Boom. A hand knife slammed down, and the pitch-black armament hockey perfectly blended with the violent thunder. At the moment of heavy smashing, the seemingly indestructible flashing giant shield shattered like a piece of paper before everyone's eyes. In the next moment, the attacking Yue did not diminish, and with a stance that could not cover his ears, he slashed hard on the shoulders of Kizaru. Boom. The dull collision sounded, and under the echo, Kizaru's body flew out like a sandbag. In the end, it hit a big tree dozens of meters away, and the huge impact force caused the big tree to break in the middle. Canine Yuhi Lotus. A low voice suddenly sounded in the sky. Under the scorching hot air waves, Akainu appeared in midair, with the 5 fingers of his right hand suddenly clenched, and he slammed out. The lava splashed all over the sky, and when he shook his body, it turned into a roaring lava giant dog, and slammed into Chinyu's back with a posture as fast as a thunderbolt. You bastard, let me see how you hide. Huang Yuan laughed mischievously. Although he ate Chinyu's hand knife just now, it was obvious from his expression that he was trying to trick Chinyu into being fooled. However, a sly smile appeared on the cheeks of Ultimate. The next moment, when he looked at Chinyu's suddenly raised eyes, he suddenly became stiff. Bloody eyes of Yuhi, the 9 Tomo turned over, like a black hole, pulling everyone's eyes into it. A huge tidal wave of pupil power rolled back in a rolling gesture. Gorilla Yuhi exploded like a volcanic eruption. The illusory ribs, the moment of rapid construction, collided with the incoming molten giant dog in an instant. Boom. A low sound of collision suddenly sounded, and the moment the seemingly incomparable molten giant dog slammed into Yuhi's ribs, it burst open. Who had just condensed his skeleton, immediately swept towards Akainu in midair when his right hand appeared. The violent blow shook everyone's nerves. No one would have imagined that Qin Yu would not be at a disadvantage under the attack of the two generals. Moreover, without looking back, it is also possible to construct an illusory skeleton giant with a height of more than 10 meters and launch a counterattack. Boom! The unexpected blow made Akainu have nowhere to hide. The next moment, it was directly smashed, turned into a sky of molten rainwater, and splashed around. Watching the joint attack of the two generals was disintegrated in an instant. The faces of the three of Charles and Marco were immediately pale and bloodless. Before they could say a word, they hurriedly raised their heads and met Qin Yu's icy gaze. The voices that came out of them hit the depths of their souls. Cut. The word fell, giving people a feeling of death, making everyone's spine a bone-chilling chill. Akainu just condensed his body back, his face sank, and he roared. Uchiha Qin Yu, you dare! Kazuna, stop him quickly! A hysterical roar sounded one after another. Huang Yuan, who had been planning to wait to see Qin Yu's middle sleeve, suddenly woke up. Under the skyrocketing golden light all over his body, he also roared angrily. 8 feet Joan Tomo. Bang bang bang. A streak of golden light shot out from Kizaru's hands like sharp arrows. The speed was so fast that the air along the way was directly torn apart, and by the time everyone could react, they had already appeared in front of Susanoo. In the eyes of Kizaru, no matter how huge the skeleton in front of him is, as long as it is suppressed by the ability of the flash fruit and the saturated attack, it can definitely be directly smashed to pieces. It's just that this idea just sprouted in his mind, and the scene that came into his eyes shook his nerves. The pitch-black armament hockey spread quickly as if it had taken a stimulant. The next moment, without waiting for everyone to react, he directly covered Susanoo, who was more than 10 meters tall, as if he had transformed into a dark and mighty armor. Originally, the illusory posture of the orangutan Yuhi has completely turned into a dark Yuhi color, giving people a more and more fierce feeling. Bang bang bang. Susanoo like a frenzy. Unfortunately, except for the sound of a series of rain hitting the plantains. There was absolutely no way for him to break Uchiha Qin Yu's defenses, let alone rescue the 3 heavenly dragons from the butcher's knife. Cut. 3 voices with no emotion at all came out from the mouth of the magic skeleton warrior. The big knife that was suddenly drawn out was as cold as a wave, and the cold light of the sharp blade rolled down, reflecting the terrified expressions of the 3 Tianlong people. In the face of those pleading, helpless, unbelievable expressions, the 3 magic puppet warriors without the slightest emotion were obviously the best executioners. Don't! Huo Shaoshan and Bastius, as well as the 3 Tianlong people, exclaimed in unison. However, waiting for the burning mountain, and Bastius, it is the undead knight who is eyeing. The 2 just took a few steps, and the oncoming is the charge of hell. Facing this violent scene, the only thing they could do was to watch the 3 skeleton warriors in golden armor with their sharp blades clenched in their hands. It fell towards the neck of the helpless Tianlongren. PFF'd. A low splashing sound suddenly sounded, and the blood of the orangutan Yuhi splashed down. The 3 round-eyed, unbelievable heads fell to the ground with a grunt. Eventually rolled to 4 or 5 meters away. The aorta and neck were cut off at the waist, and the blood splashed like a gushing izumi, spraying straight to 7 or 8 meters away. The hot blood, and the blood of the gorilla Yuhi, directly dyed the ground to Yuhi. The sudden scene, perhaps many people are already psychologically prepared. However, at the moment I saw it with my own eyes, the pupils were shrinking, the eye sockets were splitting, and the face was even more unbelievable. There were many people who couldn't hold back, and even rubbed their eyes to bleed. Gosh, what did I see? It's just big news. Is this world crazy? The Tianlong people have been killed. Quick, tell the editor-in-chief Morgans, the world is going to change. Urgent exclamations sounded one after another in the field. Gathering here, many of them are the eyeliners of various forces, as well as pirates watching the show. However, at this moment, they have no intention to continue watching. Right now, the Tianlong people are beheaded in public, which means that the skeleton demon has pierced the sky. Not to mention the Navy headquarters, I am afraid that even the world government will go crazy. Once this matter is not handled properly, it is likely that the slaughtering order is waiting for them. Chapter 506 Untie the Dog Leash. The huge square fell into a dead silence. In the melee, Huo Shaoshan and Bastiu and other navies suddenly stopped their movements. Looking straight at the scene in front of him, it was unbelievable. Crazy, the Tianlong people were killed, we all have to die. Huo Shaoshan's eyes suddenly became Yuhi, and he roared anxiously. Shut up. Akainu roared, his face gloomy and watery. Looking at Qin Yu's feet, the three corpses of the Tianlong people were almost crushed by him. After staring at it for 3 or 5 seconds, he said sharply, Uchiha Qin Yu, do you know how stupid you have done? If you kill the Tianlong people, you will never die with the world government. Even if you flee to the ends of the earth, you will surely die. The awe-inspiring voice reverberated in the sky in all directions, and at this moment, it was as if a magic sound had been poured into it, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. Akainu, don't you want to keep talking? The cold voice came out of Qin Yu's mouth. Could it be, do you think that we will have a chance to negotiate at the beginning? Stop talking nonsense, let's fight. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for obtaining 5,000 world shock points, reaching the random limit unlocking opportunity, whether the host will unlock it immediately. The ethereal prompting sound of the system suddenly echoed in Qin Yu's mind. The violent scene made Qin Feng startled. 5,000 world turbulence points was completely beyond Qin Yu's expectations. If he hadn't heard it with his own ears, he would still suspect that he was dreaming. However, this is no wonder Qin Yu. After all, in the past 800 years, there have been very few incidents against Tianlong people. In the past 100 years, no one has heard of it. Right now, it is a live broadcast of the phone bug, and there are many news reporters waiting here. It can be said that at the moment when Qin Yu publicly beheaded the Tianlong people, what happened here, under the scrutiny of various forces, spread all over the sea for a while. However, in this situation, what awaits is the madness from the two generals. For Qin Yu, these 5,000 world turbulence points were just in time for rain. Ding dong, does the host immediately lift the random restrictions? The system prompt sounded again. Qin Yu came back to his senses, his thoughts turned, and he directly issued an order, immediately cancel it at random. Ding dong, please wait a moment, host. Ding dong, 4,000 points of volatility are being deducted, and the current balance is 1503 points. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for unlocking S-rank ninjutsu, Futon Wind Style Rasengan succeeded. The continuous sound of the system prompts made Qin Yu stagnate for a while, and then he was a little puzzled. It took a lot of hard work and layout to get 4,000 turbulence points. Although, it seems that the turbulence value is easy to come by, but as Qin Yu's reputation increases, the influence on the world will decrease. Unless you can do something big that shocks the whole sea, it is obviously difficult to get more turbulence values at one time. However, what was unlocked this time is a bit different from Qin Yu's expectations, but in terms of plasticity, Futon Wind Style Rasengan is obviously more extensible. After all, in the original work, that was the basic starting point for the multiple meatballs set meal. Roar. A low roar sounded suddenly. The fiery waves of air attacked him head-on, causing Qin Yu to withdraw from the space of consciousness. The first thing that came into view was a giant dog covered in molten lava. The huge body, with a height of 50 or 60 meters, charged towards Susanoo with a rolling posture. The violent scene made Chinyu's brows twitch, and the death of the 3 heavenly dragons was obviously relieved of the shackles by Akainu. However, in the face of the incoming molten giant dog, Chinyu obviously did not hesitate at all, and suddenly caught it with his right hand. By armament Haki suddenly grabbed it towards the incoming molten giant dog. Boom! A giant dog of dozens of meters was abruptly stopped. The next moment, without any bells and whistles, he slammed towards the ground. Boom! The dull thunder-like collision sound echoed between heaven and earth, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. Under the huge impact force, the huge molten giant dog shattered in response, turning into a large piece of molten slurry and splashing open. Some more, blazing straight at the Navy and the Death Legion in the melee. The violent scene made many Navy faces in the field change drastically. Originally, in their eyes, there were 2 generals who shot, enough to end the battle in an instant. However, now Chinyu's endless means have subverted their cognition. Most importantly, compared with them, these dead legions are not afraid of the invasion of molten lava at all. Not afraid of death and pain in the slightest, they press them back for a while. Mr. Rayleigh, do you think he can win? Bonnie, who had long since fled from the ruins of the auction house and had fled to the side to watch the play, with her beautiful eyes glowing, she stared straight at the changes in the battle. When he saw the shock, his face was even more shocked. For her, Chinyu's method also subverted her cognition. The most important thing is that they can still hold down the troops led by the 2 generals, so that they can't breathe. However, compared to Bonnie, Rayleigh is obviously an old ginger, and his eyes are more sinister. He raised his head and took a sip, and said, "No, now is the beginning, but, look at that kid. Take it easy, I'm afraid I've already expected it." Just now, Bonnie's expression froze, her face full of disbelief. With the scale of the battle in front of her, it would be very difficult for her to survive. However, now Rayleigh was telling her that it was just a pre-dinner snack, which was going too far. The messy thoughts just surfaced in Bonnie's mind, and the next words that fell in her ears shook her nerves. "Okay, we should all be done warming up, and we should be serious." Chinyu's indifferent voice suddenly sounded, instantly arousing everyone's thoughts. It can be said that at this moment, everyone's thoughts are almost the same as Bonnie. At this scale of battle, it's still a warm-up, so are you planning to let people live? However, as Chinyu said, the expressions of Akagi and Kizaru suddenly turned gloomy, and with their horn-like postures, they blocked Chinyu's retreat as far as possible. "What an arrogant person, you're a smart person, you should be very clear about your situation. I will give you another chance now, die, or surrender." Akainu shouted angrily with a gloomy expression on his face. "Death?" Chinyu asked back playfully, the scepter in his hand suddenly stomped on the ground, and said with a smile, "I didn't expect that the general was joking. It's funny, but you should thank me a lot. Kill me dragon people, for you, it is to untie the dog's leash, so that you can let go. There's a lot of nonsense, let's get to the point. Chapter 507 just entered my ultimate range." The small voices echoed in the huge square like a hurricane at this moment. When everyone's expressions changed drastically, their eyes locked on Akainu and Kasaragi. In their eyes, if it is really like what the skeleton demon said, does that mean that they are still in each other's layout? As Chinyu said, it was a dog being led away. "Okay, very good, today I will let you see what the strength of a general is. Give me all back, or die." Akainu roared. Compared with just now, his face was gloomy, and his whole person's breath changed directly. "Retreat, hurry up, this place will become a battlefield. Naturally, those with devil fruit abilities have the ability to fight in a large area." Huo Shaoshan roared first. Right now, the Tianlong people are dead, and taking responsibility is inevitable. However, if Akainu can take down Uchiha Chinyu, their charges will be offset accordingly. It can be said that this is their only chance. Moreover, as lieutenant generals of the Navy headquarters, they clearly know what it means to be a general in anger and disaster. Retreat, don't get entangled with the Death Army. The shark slashing sword in Bastiu's hand slashed towards the incoming undead knight. The huge impact caused him to retreat. Without turning his head to shave, he pulled away and quickly retreated. For a time, the Navy soldiers, who were already overwhelmed, collapsed directly. A moment ago, the elite troops who kept talking about it now seemed pale and powerless, and there was a feeling that the slap in the face was too sudden. Seeing that even the Navy soldiers were retreating, the lingering eyeliners and the people watching the show all tightened their nerves and pulled away without a reason. Editor-in-Chief Morgan's urgent news report. It was just a warm-up just now. Now the decisive battle will begin. General Akainu has given an order to retreat. Are we going to retreat? A news practitioner couldn't help but wipe the heat on his forehead. Khan asked eagerly. No, this is big news. We can't go back. You must take a picture of him. I'm going to make a special topic for that guy. Not long ago, as the mastermind, he planned to advance the escape from the City Grand Prison, and not long ago defeated the first person in the supernova, Fire Fist Ace, robbed the gold in the sky, killed the Tianlong people, and confronted the two generals head-on. This is super big news at any time in the past. If this guy is allowed to get out of the Chambord Islands alive, he can definitely become the level of the legendary Big Pirate. Hasty words, with undisguised excitement. It can be said that, to a certain extent, for journalists such as Morgan's, the best news is the sublimation of life. Well, that's fine. The reporter's expression changed slightly, and he finally clenched Kiba's teeth and agreed. Not to mention him, even people hiding in other places also have a question in their hearts. How will the skeleton demon, who has tossed out so many major events, deal with two generals who are hailed as the most powerful generals in the Navy headquarters? At the same time, will he be able to get out of the Chambord Islands alive? For a time, countless gazes all locked on Chin-Yu, who was shrouded in armed Susano, with a hint of inexplicable urgency on his face. The field is almost cleared. You can let go of the battle with peace of mind, otherwise I won't walk smart enough. Chin-Yu's indifferent voice sounded again. In the deep-set eye sockets, the jumping soul flame, under the flickering, met Akainu's gaze. Everything he is doing now is to raise a new height on the basis of the world shock caused by beheading the Tianlong people. Fight! Chin-Yu spoke again. The moment when the simple words were uttered, there was an inexplicable dignified atmosphere. The next moment, a thunderous roar followed. A madman! Akainu roared, like a furious lion. A fiery wave of air quickly detonated with him at the center. Countless tumbling hot melts spewed out like a frenzy. It can be said that at this moment, Akainu felt like a volcanic eruption. Boy, today I will see how strong your turtle shell is. Boom! Akainu stomped the ground suddenly, and the endless lava exploded under his feet. The whole person is like a volcanic eruption. With such a powerful impact, his speed suddenly increased to ultimate. The whole person was like a ghost, appearing directly above Chin-Yu in the sky dozens of meters away. Without any bells and whistles, the 5 fingers clenched suddenly and punched Uchiha Chin-Yu in the air. Big Spitfire! Boom! The roaring gas explosion sounded, and the hot melt exploded instantly. Like a raging wave, it went straight to Chin-Yu and rolled away. Everywhere along the way, the air was scorched and sizzling, and it caught everyone's eyes, like a canopy of molten lava falling from the sky, giving people a terrifying sense of sight. Yo, what are you looking at, kid? I don't know if you are arrogant or ignorant and arrogant, but you are one step away from death. Huang Yuan's wretched voice suddenly sounded. Everyone just felt a flower in front of them. The yellow ape, who was originally standing hundreds of meters away, appeared like a ghost and appeared dozens of meters behind Chin-Yu. Hands slightly raised, endless golden light appeared in all directions of Susanoo, like a mirror. 8-footed Joan Tomo slaughterhouse. Bang bang bang. A series of low-pitched bursts of air sounded, endless golden light bloomed, and in an instant, the yellow monkey was reduced to a luminous body. However, as soon as the golden light appeared, it landed on the countless golden mirrors trapping Chinyu, and was instantly reflected and amplified. In a short half-breath, it turned into an airtight saturation offensive, forming the most powerful joint impact with Akainu's fire breathing. The violent scene suddenly changed everyone's expressions. Even Bonnie's expression in the distance suddenly changed drastically, and she said anxiously, "Old man Rayleigh, do you need to take action? This general's strength is too terrifying." Seeing Bonnie, who suddenly showed concern, Riley laughed dryly and said, "You girl, won't you be fascinated by this kid's majesty? However, don't underestimate that kid. With his calmness, I'm afraid he is still hiding his trump card." Hidden cards. Bonnie was slightly startled, but this time, before she could ask, the words that fell in her ears shook her nerves. "I said, 2 generals, isn't this kind of tentative attack taught by Zephyr? In the battle of life and death, you must make a big move, that is the correct method. For example, you just entered my big move now. The range is over." The indifferent voice sounded suddenly. At this moment, it gives people a feeling of death. Chapter 508 _ a big move that fell from the sky. Boom. A thunderous explosion sounded instantly. The lava that filled the sky and the golden light shrouded Susanoo head-on. However, looking at Chinyu, who was instantly submerged by the attack, Akainu and Kizaru couldn't be happy. The spine froze suddenly, as if there was a feeling of being stared at by the god of death. When a strange bell sounded, and the light blue light bloomed like fireworks in the explosion. The next moment, before everyone could react, a mysterious magic formation quickly bloomed with Chinyu as the center. The illusory shape, under the endless flow of light, gives people a feeling like the bright stars in the night sky. An inexplicable sense of crisis was born from the heart. The cold, piercing voice rang out. "Super magic, Skyfall." Hum. The roar of the air suddenly sounded. The next moment, before everyone could react, the lead clouds accumulated in the sky seemed to be moved away by a pair of invisible hands. Boom. Jinchuriki column with a diameter of several hundred meters swooped down from the sky above the sky with a speed like a thunderbolt. The speed was so fast that Akainu and Kyabu, who were in the center of the attack range, could not react in time. The two of them just felt a flower in front of them, and when they were able to react, the attack had already poured out on the body surface. Boom. The violent impact instantly shattered the entire square. The blast wave that was set off is even more like a 12th-level hurricane. The big tree surrounded by several people was directly cut off by the waist, and the thick rocky ground shattered and spread like a spider web. For a while, it felt like the end of the world. Hurry up and retreat. Huo Shaoshan and others, who had already escaped from 500 or 600 meters away, roared in a hurry. Looking at the crumbling ground, if these means fell on them, it would be enough to kill them in one hit. However, they never imagined that Chinyu would be so crazy that he and the Death Army were completely exposed to the attack. After everyone escaped from a kilometer away, Huo Shaoshan and Bastiu stopped forcibly and hurriedly looked at the center of the explosion. However, when they entered the scene, their pupils suddenly contracted. Everywhere along the way, trees crumbled and the rocky ground turned into a desert. Everything was reduced to ashes. In the central area where Chinyu and the three were originally, there was only an unfathomable pit left. This kid is really too crazy. The first shot is a killer move. I'm afraid Akainu and Kyabu will be enough. Rayleigh took the pale Bonnie, and also pulled away from the big tree that fell 1,000 meters away. Superior. Looking at the ruined battlefield, there was a smile on his face. This riotous character reminded Rayleigh of Roger's crazy behavior that day. He still remembered that Roger's persuasive word to invite him to board the ship was to turn the sea into trouble together. "That guy is still alive," Bonnie exclaimed suddenly. The moment Rayleigh followed the sound, he saw a figure of Susano with a broken body in the deep pit, and rushed out of the air. However, before they could react, 2 air-breaking noises followed. "Boy, you're not the only one who understands armament hockey, we do too," Akainu roared. However, this time he was different from before. Under the transpiration of molten lava, the surface was covered with a pitch-black armament hockey. Only, compared to the superhuman and animal-type devil fruit abilities. As a natural devil fruit person, elementalization is the most important means. Unfortunately, unless armament hockey cultivates, he can reach the level of Barrett, the descendant of the devil. Otherwise, the use of armament hockey will obviously weaken the range and saturation attack capabilities of the natural devil fruit ability. Therefore, as Zephyr said, Akainu and Kizaru focused more on the development of devil fruit abilities, but ignored the practice of domineering. It's just that, facing Chinyu's ultimate move right now, they don't want to be smashed into pieces for the sake of face. So bite the bullet, display armament hockey, and force the super magic sky to fall. However, the two just appeared. An unexpected figure emerged from the ruins. As for the inside of Susano, it was just an empty shell. This is the Golden Cicada's escape plan. Messy thoughts flashed through the minds of Akainu and Kizaru. The moment the two hurriedly looked at each other, they met, the 9-tomo Sharingan. The gorilla Yuhi's blood-like eyes and the 9-tomo's rapidly turning, give people a delusional illusion. However, no matter how cool and infiltrating these eyes are, what makes them unbelievable the most is that the skeleton demon with a fierce face in front of him will be so young. Hum. The tearing sound of the air trembling suddenly sounded, and the warm smile on his face, like the boy next door, was imprinted in the depths of their pupils. There is a sense of death urging death. Futon, Wind-style Rasengan and Raiden, Thunder-style Rasengan, which were spinning like comets frantically. He slapped the two of them head-on at a lightning-fast speed. "Sorry, your late meatball package has arrived, please sign for it, if your armament hockey turtle shell is hard enough." As soon as the playful words fell, the two balls hit Akainu and Kizaru with a bang. Boom. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion sounded. The violent hurricane and countless fierce thunderbolts exploded in an instant under the frenzied compression. It felt like a nuclear bomb exploded, instantly drowning Akainu and Kizaru who had just gotten out of trouble. For a time, the wind blade was like a knife, and the thunder was like a needle. The resulting dense saturation attacks quickly poured down on Akainu and Kisaragi. Armament hockey that covered the two bodies shattered in an instant like a cobweb. Everyone who witnessed this scene took a deep breath. Kizaru and Akainu let out an angry roar. The whole body shattered. The molten lava splashed and the golden light dissipated, dazzling like volcanoes and fireworks. Under the endless waves of explosions, a radius of several thousand meters was submerged in an instant. Seeing that even armament hockey was smashed into pieces, the pair of terrified eyes suddenly locked on Chinyu's body, and the pupils shrank suddenly. When a light blue magic circle bloomed again under Chinyu's feet. At the moment when the illusory and colorful magic circle was quickly constructed, a violent magic force surged out of Chinyu's body again. At this moment, everyone present clearly remembered the big move that fell from the sky. Chinyu, who raised his hands and started to make big moves. His big moves had no CD, and he could even make consecutive moves. This riding on a horse is a comparison between people and dead people. Goodbye everyone, let's play next time. A warm smile climbed up on Chinyu's face. In the Maruko double combination package, released armament Hokage in a desperate situation and carried out elementalization before they could get out. The light Jinchuriki column that fell from the sky, poured down again. Chapter 509 tossed a huge wave. Boom. The huge light Jinchuriki column, like a frenzy, vented from the sky. The speed is so fast that it is impossible for people to react at all, and it is time to recover. The Akainu and Kizaru who were in the ball set meal have been baptized by the fall of the sky again. Boom. The thunder-like explosion sounded straight into the sky. The violent air waves swept over a radius of 5 or 6 kilometers, causing a large number of naval soldiers who had escaped the range of the first attack to be overturned. The trees, rocks and other buildings along the way were smashed like paper. Dust and debris rose into the sky, filling the sky in all directions. This scene, I don't know how long it lasted, until the blast of the explosion subsided. The sand and dust in the sky seemed to be moved by an invisible big hand, and the angry roar of Akainu suddenly exploded. "You bastard, get out and die, I'm going to tear you apart." Like thunder, the fiery lava giant Jinchuriki column rose straight into the sky like a unified Taoist. For a time, the huge ruins, there was a torrential rain of molten lava. The Akainu, who used the moon step and rushed out of the sky, had broken clothes in many places, and even the cloak representing justice was torn several times. However, if ice can kill people, then Akainu can kill Chinyu tens of thousands of times now. Akainu's face was so gloomy that it was ultimate. After looking around, Chinyu was no longer there. "Akainu, where did that guy go?" Kizaru also rushed out quickly. Compared with Akainu, his image is obviously not too conceited, and when he looks at the situation that has long disappeared, his face gradually becomes gloomy. "Let's split up and use observation Hokage to block half of the island by one person. I don't believe that in just a few dozen seconds, that kid was able to escape island number 1. Akainu shouted in a deep voice. Now that the Tianlong people were killed, the two generals joined forces and were easily suppressed by the other party. Although it seems to be a bit of a trick, but starting with a big move, this fighting method obviously suppresses them and makes them feel like they can't breathe. Once the matter got out, they didn't catch Uchiha Chinyu either. Then the Navy's so-called strongest combat power will become the strongest joke. Okay, Huang Yuan's face sank, and he quickly agreed. Under the endless golden light blooming on the body, the whole person is like a ghost, swept away to the other side. On Akainu, the molten lava was also tumbling, rushing in the opposite direction at the speed of ultimate. For a time, only a piece of ruins remained in the huge battlefield, telling that the battle just now was not simple. As for those so-called nobles, I am afraid that there are no bones left. Inside the Navy headquarters, the marshal's office. Sengoku was standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling glass, looking out to the coast in the distance. As for Garp, he was still like an old idler, eating donuts. "What's the matter, Sengoku, are you nervous?" Garp shoved the donut into his mouth with his backhand, and immediately said with a laugh, "Akainu and Kyabu, those two old boys, their strength is not simple, and they have joined forces. It is not difficult to catch the big skeleton demon." Quote. However, if someone knew the weaknesses of those two guys, it would be a headache. After all, that old boy Zepha, but he often pissed them off, training didn't work, and he always took shortcuts like devil fruit, and now it has become shortcut. Bored. The chattering voice echoed in the huge office. The lieutenant general guarding here, his eyelids twitched, and he couldn't hold back. In their eyes, only Lieutenant General Garp could say such words, and the three generals, together with them, did not dare to criticize each other like this. Sengoku turned around abruptly and said, "Cap, I'm not worried, I'm just afraid that those two guys will make too much noise and destroy the Chambord Islands. I have to explain to the 5 old stars. Just now, Magellan received information that the Great Skeleton Demon is too young. In his situation, no matter how many methods emerge, facing Akainu and Kizaru, these two veterans, it is very good to have a little ripple. Having said that, Sengoku looked at the reward order in his hand and said, those who came out of the advanced city prison should also be sent back. Marshal Sengoku, you are right, this sea is already chaotic enough. These prisoners who were supposed to disappear into the long river of history, should not continue to walk this muddy water. We just need to wait for the good news of the two generals, that's enough. The ghost spider, who was waiting by the side, also agreed. As soon as these words fell, they were immediately echoed by the nods of other lieutenants. However, before they could speak, a burst of hurried footsteps suddenly sounded. Boom! The door of the office was pushed open, and an unexpected figure entered the eyes first. Looking at the hurried messengers, the generals present changed their expressions slightly. Ghost Spider took the lead and couldn't hold back, and shouted in a hurry, "You are that company, what's the matter in such a hurry, and there are no rules at all." The big thing is bad. On the first island of the Chambord archipelago, General Yellow Monkey and General Akainu met with the Great Skeleton Demon, which eventually evolved into a large-scale battle. The phone bug was affected by the battle and cut off. I just received a report. 3 members of the Tianlong People's Charles family were beheaded in public by the Death Army led by the Skeleton Demon. The 2 generals fought against the Skeleton Demon and were eventually suppressed and defeated. The Skeleton Demon is now missing. Lieutenant General Bastiu and General Hoya Yamanaka, jointly request, immediately send warships to block all ports. The hurried reporting sound seemed to be infused with magical sound at this moment, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. The huge office suddenly fell into an inexplicable silence. A moment ago, they were touting each other, and the 2 generals were able to send Uchiha Chinyu back to the advanced city prison. Sengoku even patted his chest and said that Chinyu was too young to be afraid at all. In the face of 2 generals teaming up, even the waves can't turn it over. However, now someone told them that Chinyu not only made waves, but also monstrous waves. Killing 3 heavenly dragon people in public, and even escaped with the help of 2 generals, this kind of record can be called the most valuable battle in any battle. You made it clear, the 2 generals joined forces to use observation hockey. Did they let the Skeleton Demon escape? Ghost Spider asked eagerly. In his eyes, even if Uchiha Chinyu was able to escape thousands of meters away, or even 10,000 meters away in an instant. But as long as the observation hockey is used, it can be locked quickly. Coupled with the yellow monkey, it is known as the fastest speed, but it is difficult for anyone to fly. However, the messenger now said that the Great Skeleton Demon was lost, and the coast was blocked, which was equivalent to telling outsiders that their naval headquarters were incompetent. Chapter 510 no less dangerous than any era. This. Faced with the questioning of the ghost spider, the messenger came to an end. No, don't embarrass him. Garp said suddenly, this skeleton demon is really good, and it is indeed the mastermind of the prison escape in the city. I am afraid that after the first fight with the yellow monkey, he has already thought about it. Countermeasures. Quote. The 2 most powerful generals in the Navy joined forces, were suppressed and defeated, and then escaped from the detection range of the 2 of them observation hockey, as well as beheading the Tianlong people in public. All this seems to be a calculated plan. Having said that, Garp patted the dust on his body and said, that kid is just like a demon in his mind. In terms of calculations, I'm afraid he can be compared to you, Sengoku. I heard that he also claimed to be the supreme ruler of the Great Tomb of Narisik. If he really has a power under his command, then I am afraid that this era will be violent again, and the impact will be no less than that of Rock's and Roger's time. The slightly elusive voice echoed in the office, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. In the face of Karp's highly praised evaluation, while the expressions of the generals present changed drastically, it was the first time that Mr. Karp, who had always been lazy and showed himself, would speak in such a serious manner. "Carp, I'm not calculating, it's wisdom," Sengoku said in a deep voice. "However, you were right, this guy can plan and promote the escape from Chinda prison, and he can definitely be called a mind like a demon. Furthermore, I underestimated him from the beginning. If he is really the commander of a force, then his danger is no less than that of any era. At least, we know the four emperors very well. He has absolutely no information at all." Sengoku, who is dignifiedly known as the wise general of the Navy headquarters, even opened his mouth to give such an evaluation. The expressions of all the generals changed drastically. "Come on, now is not the time to be afraid of embarrassment. If the Skull Demon escapes from the Chambord Islands, it will be a fatal blow to our naval headquarters," Sengoku said in a deep voice. Akainu and Kyabu's combat power is good, but in terms of domineering training, as Garp said, it is a huge shortcoming. If Garp and I are dispatched in person, we can directly use observation haki to directly destroy the enemy. The entire Chambord archipelago covers all the islands, so this time, after the incident, don't follow the footsteps of Akainu and Kyabu, and bring up the domineering practice. Under the four emperors, there are many devil fruit-capable people. They have cultivated domineering to ultimate, and even more so, observation haki can foresee the future. This is the end of your journey to ultimate. Foresee the future. The expressions of the lieutenant generals present changed slightly. Especially those with devil fruit abilities. They may not have the same natural devil fruit abilities as Akainu and Kizaru. But after seeing the power of the devil fruit, it was obvious that he had gone astray. The fact that the two generals are being suppressed and defeated is like a blow to the head to wake them up. After all, there is a proper naval hero Carp in front of him, who is the strongest person who has climbed to the top relying solely on physical skills and domineering. At the same time, when the naval headquarters was mobilized to block the Chambord Islands. Hundreds of nautical miles away from the Chambord Islands, on the deck of the Moby Dick, Whitebeard was sitting upright in a chair, undergoing routine therapeutic infusions. There are 7 or 8 beautiful and seductive female nurses in uniforms all around. However, in this process, the movements in Whitebeard's hands were equally dishonest. "Dad, can't you drink less alcohol?" Marco grabbed Whitebeard's dishonest arm and said helplessly, "Your body needs to stop drinking." As a phantom beast species, with the ability of the phoenix fruit, Marco is also the ship doctor on the Whitebeard pirates. It's just that Marco, the captain of the Whitebeard first team who is alone in the sea, is more helpless when facing Whitebeard. "Haha, Marco, you kid, you still got caught." Whitebeard laughed out of nowhere. Immediately he broke free from Marco's hand, raised the huge wine saucer, and poured the wine into his mouth. After drinking all the spirits and wiping his mouth at will, he laughed and said, "As a pirate, if you don't drink a drop of alcohol, you're worse than a woman. If there's a day when I don't drink, it's not unless I die." Unbridled laughter echoed on the deck. Looking at the Whitebeard who didn't put the doctor's orders in his ears, Marco was helpless, but the next moment his brows suddenly twitched. Musket. Puff puff. The sound of breaking the air suddenly sounded. Hot flames, like bullets, echoed in the cabin behind him. Marco's expression sank, and he didn't have time to think about it. The light blue flames on his body emerged, like a ghost, appearing behind Whitebeard, and collided with the incoming dense flame bombs in an instant. Boom! A dull crash resounded. The seemingly sharp sniper was directly stopped by Marco without injury. However, this was only the beginning. A resentful roar resounded in the air like thunder. "Whitebeard, you die for me." Fire fist. The sound of roar sounded one after another, and the fiery air wave fell from the sky like a frenzy. With a slight change in Marco's face, he hurriedly looked up at the sky, and the first thing that caught his eye was the fiery fist of fire. However, before Marco could make a move, Jinbei's deep voice suddenly sounded. Merman Karate Esoteric 3 books. Boom. Was compressed to ultimate rose into the sky in the sea below. In the end, in full view, it collided with the roaring fire fist. Boom. The steam evaporated, turning into a wave of the weather and rolling away, leaving the huge deck in a fog. Seeing this scene, Jinping's expression changed drastically. Before he could react, he saw a ghostly figure appearing in front of Whitebeard first. The dazzling sharp blade slashed towards his neck. However, in the face of this kind of attack, Whitebeard didn't seem to care about it at all, just kept a playful smile on his face. When the crisp metal collision sounded suddenly, the dazzling sharp blade slashed at Whitebeard's neck, as if it collided with a steel plate, and splattered sparks that were as dazzling as fireworks. When everyone in the field reacted, they saw the blade slash on the pitch-black armament hockey. Brother Ace, stop quickly. Jinping's face changed drastically, and he hurried forward to grab Ace's arm. However, compared to him, the captains stationed around him were completely indifferent except for a smile on his face. After all, since Fire Fist Ace was forcibly abducted onto the ship, the 30th assassination has been launched. Chapter 511 The Most Dreadful Existence. Jinpei, let me go quickly, I'm going to seek revenge on that guy. A trace of resentment flashed on Ace's face, and he shouted angrily. As soon as these words fell, there was a burst of laughter in the field. They still remembered that Ace woke up 2 days ago and saw a photo of himself being stepped on his cheek by the skeleton demon. It felt like a blissful coma. When he woke up again, he frantically yelled to leave the Moby Dick and go to Chinyu for revenge. However, every time he was stopped by Whitebeard, it evolved into an assassination first and then leaving the Whitebeard pirates. Brother Ace, you should be very clear that at that time, apart from being careless and underestimating the enemy, you really had shortcomings in strength. Jinbei explained helplessly. His methods are endless, and he has a high level of two-color domineering. Your winning rate is less than 50%. Jinpei has said this 100 times, and even his lips have been worn away, but unfortunately every time the effect is not good. Perhaps, persuading people, persuading a drifting person, should pull the collar, and the slap palm is the most effective. No, I am offering a reward of 400 million. He is only 350 million. I have the ability of a natural devil fruit. I can reach this height in just 1 year of going to sea. To defeat him, only it's just a catch. Ace's face sank, and he roared angrily. He never imagined that he would only come to this point in order to challenge Whitebeard. Uchiha Chinyu, who killed him without saying a word and made a big move to clear the field, made him the laughingstock of the Whitebeard pirates. Thinking of this, Ace almost crushed his phalanx. Ace, take the knife away first. Marco appeared beside Ace and said, that kid is really strong. Furthermore, the reward does not represent the strength of the strength. This sentence was said by Chinyu himself when he was sitting on the deck and facing Whitebeard face to face. The short fight made them see the truth of what they said. In the face of Marco's re-examination of the old story, the captain who was present was obviously stiff all of a sudden. No, this is just what you said when you planned to force me to stay. I don't believe it. Ace's expression sank, and he shouted in a hurry, let me leave, I will carry that guy. I'll be able to do it, or I'll jump into the sea on this deck. A hysterical growl rang out. However, before everyone could speak, Vista, the captain of the 5th Division, rushed over in a hurry. Dad, something is bad. According to the report of the eyeliner left on the Chambord archipelago, on the number 1 island, the population auction house attacked the Tianlong people. 3 Tianlong people were beheaded in public. After Akainu and Kyabu led the elites to arrive, they fought with the murderer. In the end, the 2 generals were suppressed and defeated. Completely blocked the entire Chambord archipelago, and all the pirates who were still staying were caught in one sweep. Quote. The slightly elusive voice, at this moment, seemed to be filled with a magic sound, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. Even the Whitebeard who was sitting on the chair couldn't help sitting up straight, squinting his eyes slightly, and said in a deep voice, even the boy who lit the candle and the kid who played with Flash were defeated. Is Guy Duo that lunatic, or Charlotte Lingling that lunatic woman? In Whitebeard's eyes, there are very few people who can defeat two generals known as the Navy's highest combat power, except for the four emperors. Of course, at their level, it is possible to defeat them, but if they want to escape and take their lives, it is impossible. For a time, everyone's eyes turned and locked on Beasta's body, with a hint of urgency on their faces. They eagerly wanted to know who had defeated their nemesis, and it could be regarded as a bad breath for the pirates. No, yes, it was the great skeleton demon, who defeated Akainu and Kyabu. After swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Beasta roared and shouted. It can be said that when he got this information, his expression was the same as everyone in front of him. His expression was stiff, his pupils were shrinking, his eye sockets were almost split, and his face was full of disbelief. Beasta, are you kidding me? Jose asked first, unable to hold back his breath. I also think it's a joke. Now the sea is full of this news, and your subordinates should also receive this information soon. Beasta rolled his eyes helplessly. Thinking of what happened on the Moby Dick not long ago, their spines were still chilled. If he really agreed to Chin Yu, the 1-to-10 request would still be defeated in the end. Then don't say they don't know where to put their faces. I'm afraid even the Whitebeard pirates will be ashamed. No, it's impossible. He clearly only has a reward of 350 million, which is lower than me. Ace shook his head with a livid expression and said to himself. A moment ago, he was full of anger and wanted to find Chin Yu bad luck. However, right now, this kind of thing is pouring down like a basin of cold water. Compared with Chin Yu's fierceness, his so-called Rookie King was nothing but shit. Ace, that guy, he was able to escape as the mastermind of the prison in the Advanced City Prison, which is enough to prove his ability is not low. Whitebeard said first. What's more, stepping into the sea in this way at the same time, there is no trace of its origin, as if it appeared out of thin air. Quote. It can be said that this is the most terrifying and most feared existence. Having said that, Whitebeard patted Ace on the shoulder and said, but don't worry, as long as you stay on the Moby Dick, the training of the three-color domineering as the old man's son will never fall. With your burning fruit, I will definitely be able to defeat that kid next time we meet. After all, my Whitebeard looks at people's eyes, but I can't be wrong. In the future, you will surpass me and become the strongest in this sea. And that kid will be your competitor. The awe-inspiring voice echoed on the deck. The expressions of the captains in the field could not help but change slightly. It was the first time they had seen Whitebeard have such high hopes for a newcomer. Conqueror's hockey that they are born with, which they don't have. These alone are enough to explain the reason for Whitebeard's attention. Ace, Dad is right, you are not that kid's opponent now, but it doesn't mean that it will not be in the future. As long as you learn the three-color domineering, you will be able to win when you meet in the future. If you go now, you will only be humiliated. Defeat. Jinpei hurriedly persuaded when he saw the needle in the seam. For a while, Ace fell into silence, then suddenly clenched his fists, bit Kiba and said, okay, I am willing to be under the command of Dad, but Dad, you have to personally guide me in the practice of three-color domineering. I won't let that guy be the stepping stone. Quote. Chapter 512 _ Don't worry, it's alright. Meanwhile, within the Chambord Islands. Due to the beheading of the Tianlong people on the spot, the two generals of the Navy were defeated, and the disappearance of the skeleton demon made the Navy headquarters fully mobilized. Headed by Garp, the lieutenant generals led a large force to blockade all the ports centered on the Chambord Islands. All coded pirate ships and merchant ships were seized. The pirates staying in the Chambord archipelago were even caught. This situation continued for 3 days, but it gave the impression that the great skeleton demon was sinking into the sea, without the slightest sound. Island 13, inside the Ripping Off Tavern. Compared with normal days, the tavern is unusually deserted. Shachi drank a cigarette and wiped the goblet in her hand. Looking at the messy shop, this is the 10th time it has been searched in 3 days. After the Tianlong people were killed, there was not even a target that could be ripped off on weekdays. However, what puzzled her the most was that even her intelligence system could not detect the whereabouts of Uchiha and Chinyu. This made her, who had always claimed to be an intelligence agent, have the illusion of doubting her life. Jingle. The door was pushed, and it sounded suddenly. Welcome to light. Shachi spoke subconsciously, but the moment she raised her head, her pupils contracted suddenly. Boy, you are still on the island, those guys are looking for you. During this time, even her small bar was almost turned upside down. Not to mention, other places where people can hide. What's wrong, didn't I say, will we meet again? Chinyu smiled genially, sat in front of the bar, and said, come here, old friend, won't you invite me for a drink? Old friend, Shachi rolled her eyes helplessly, and said, you brat, we've only met once, and both of us have been drinking. However, the Chambord Islands are too dangerous now, so hurry up and find a way. Leave. Shachi's mouth was unforgiving, but she still took out the wine glass, poured a glass of ale, and handed it to Chinyu. However, before Chinyu could taste it, a burst of hurried footsteps hurriedly sounded. Girl, hurry up and hide inside, these people will be led away by me. Really? Shachi's expression froze, she hurriedly turned over on the bar, and walked quickly to the door. As soon as I approached the window, I saw that there were already many navy figures approaching in all directions. Rayleigh was rushing here with Bonnie. Kid, there is a tunnel behind the bar, which leads to an abandoned pier 5 kilometers away. There may be a navy guarding there, but at least it's better to be besieged here. You take that little girl and escape quickly, I believe in your ability, you can escape. Shachi said in a hurry. The door was also pushed open, and the figures of Rayleigh and Bonnie came into view first. When the two of them saw Chinyu, their expressions also changed drastically. After all, 3 days have passed since the search, and the Navy headquarters had not found even the slightest trace of Chinyu. It can be said that the longer the delay, the lower the probability of being able to catch Chinyu. It was for this reason that Rayleigh became Chinyu's scapegoat and was directly targeted by the entire Chambord Islands Navy. In Rayleigh's eyes, he thought that Chinyu had already escaped from the Chambord Islands by other means. I didn't even think that it would appear before my eyes. You bastard, the old man was hurt badly by you. Rayleigh was startled for a moment, then he immediately vomited bitterly. However, you kid, you hid well, why did you suddenly run out? Many navies, who have turned the Chambord archipelago upside down, will also find you. Hurry up and take this little girl away, the old man doesn't like to carry the oil bottle, they are coming soon, you hurry up. The hurried voices and the rapidly approaching footsteps outside made the atmosphere in the tavern suddenly depressed. You bastard, if it weren't for you, the old lady wouldn't be labeled as your accomplice, and there's no need to run away. Bonnie panted and threw a punch at Chinyu. However, Chinyu quickly clenched her wrist, and no matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't move. Don't worry, it's all right. Chinyu glanced at the window lightly, then looked at Bonnie, and said, of course you are with me, don't forget, who bought you in the auction house. Now, sit down with me, and don't make any noise. Sit aside. Bonnie froze for a moment, then said angrily, you bastard, my mother is not your slave, my mother is. Before the words were finished, Rayleigh's face suddenly changed, and he said, there are some incredible people here, get ready to fight. Boom. The door was kicked open, and then I saw a ghost spider with a gloomy face and a saber hanging from his waist. Seeing this scene, Bonnie's expression changed drastically, but she was about to burst out, but Chin-Yu covered her mouth. The whole person was pulled and sat in his arms. The sudden scene made Bonnie's expression change drastically, and even the expressions of Rayleigh and Shachi changed. Although Chin-Yu's strength is very good, the ghost spider is a lieutenant general. With such a delay, if other navies arrive, I am afraid that it will be difficult to fly with the help of tunnels. Just as Rayleigh and Shachi were tensing their nerves, the words that fell in their ears made their expressions suddenly stagnate. Where did the person go? There was an eyeliner just now, and it was mentioned that a person similar to Rayleigh of Hades fled to this place. Ghost Spider muttered to himself with a gloomy face. A pair of eyes full of haze, looking around in the narrow tavern. It's a pity, no matter how closely he looked, after his eyes stayed on Rayleigh and others for a short time, he still didn't seem to see their existence. The strange scene made Rayleigh, Shachi and others suspect that they were deliberately releasing water and delaying time. However, the sound of footsteps coming from all around, and the Navy soldiers rushing in next, when they looked at the tavern, gave them the feeling that they were treating them as transparent people. There was no clue at all, let alone the fight that Rayleigh imagined. The inexplicable scene made Rayleigh and Shachi couldn't help but glance at each other. When a hint of surprise flashed in the depths of their eyes, they subconsciously looked at Chin-Yu. At this moment, they obviously related this kind of strange thing to what Chin-Yu said just now. Lieutenant General Ghost Spider, we haven't seen Rayleigh and the whereabouts of the girl in all directions. We have searched this tavern no less than 10 times just now, and we didn't expect the old woman to disappear. A naval adjutant couldn't help it. Opened his mouth. It can be said that every Navy soldier rushing here now has a tired look on his face. They had assembled here 3 days ago. Apart from a short rest, they didn't even have enough sleep time. It can be said that if it goes on like this, I am afraid that people will fall first before they can be found. Chapter 513-Happy Enemy. Ghost Spider, didn't you find it inside? A shout came from outside. I'm a flying squirrel. I'm here to take over your echelon and search Island 13. You can go and rest. A hint of joy flashed across the tired cheeks of the naval soldiers present. After all, even hard-hitting people can't survive being sleepy. If you continue, I am afraid that you will be exhausted before you encounter the skeleton demon. Once they really meet, in this state, they will face the death army led by the great skeleton demon. That's even more of a dead end. Feeling the change in the atmosphere in the field, the ghost spider's face sank, and the eyes of the vulture swept around the tavern, and said, I know you have worked hard, go back to rest for 5 hours, and then continue to send troops to search. No, I'm harsh on you. It's because the situation is very serious this time. Even the world nobles were beheaded in public by that lunatic, and the 2 generals were embarrassed in public because they underestimated the enemy. Tenjong, also find it. Otherwise we wouldn't be able to eat kabuto and go. After letting go of these scolding words, the ghost spider did not stay, turned around and left first. Watching the figure go away, the Navy soldiers present secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and they quickly caught up. In their eyes, there is no responsibility, and it is not their turn to be responsible for the bottom-level Navy soldiers. There are also marshals, generals, lieutenant generals, etc. As the footsteps went away, and finally disappeared within the range of hearing, Shachi looked out the window. After confirming it again and again, she breathed a sigh of relief and looked back at Chin-Yu. Boy, I didn't expect you to have such a thing. The means, the faction has a fearless look. Quote. Is this also one of your devil fruit abilities? I heard that you can not only create a death army, but also have a super wide range of attack methods. Now there is such a way of concealing your eyes. No wonder no one can find you. Riley also nodded in agreement with Shachi's remarks. They finally knew why Chin-yu didn't leave, but the Navy couldn't find him in the Chambord Islands. Hee, it's just a way to hide your eyes. If you use observation hockey to investigate carefully, you will still be discovered. Chin-yu laughed dryly, and then slapped the slender Tun sitting on his lap. Ah, you stinky bastard! Bonnie screamed, and jumped up on Chin-yu's lap like a slingshot. That pretty face instantly turned into Yuhi, biting the little tiger Kiba, staring at Chin-yu angrily. If it wasn't because of Chin-yu's methods, I'm afraid she would have been violent. What's the matter? You obviously don't want to go because you are relying on me, and you say I'm a rogue, and I also say that men and women don't get along. Chin-yu rolled his eyes and said, if I don't do this and let you yell, we will all be together. Was discovered. Demonic illusion barrier around him. With his current Mangekyo Sharingan abilities, it's nothing but a breeze. However, this demonic illusion, at best, is the same as a blindfold. If you use observation hockey, which is similar to spiritual exploration, to search carefully, you will still find clues. It's just that this tavern has been searched many times, and those naval soldiers are already exhausted, and their patience has obviously been lost. Seeing Chin-yu who was biting back, Bonnie stomped her feet angrily and said, you prodigal son, you don't even know Lianxiangxiu, you deserve to be single all your life, no one in this world likes you, even if there is one. Must also be an extremely ugly old woman with a pockmarked face and a bucket waist. The hysterical roar echoed in the tavern, and there was no way to dissipate it for a long time. Looking at Bonnie, who was panting and seemed to be trying her best, Shachi and Rayleigh looked at each other and laughed lightly. Chin-yu rolled his eyes and said, you won't say, we are friends with joy. Ha, you kid is really smart. You are always fighting and bickering. It's easy to catch up. Rayleigh laughed heartily. However, Bonnie quickly glared at him and said, bad old man, whoever is happy with him, the woman who looks at him is blind or extremely ugly, and a beautiful beauty like me will not like it. Him. The noisy noise made Rayleigh and Shachi laugh and shake their heads. However, looking at Bonnie, who almost ran wild, it was not easy for the two of them to stay on this topic. Rayleigh quickly changed the subject and said, boy, you went back to the tavern again, you are not going to look for me, a bad old man, to coat the boat. Shall we go to the New World? I tell you, as long as the ships in the Chambord Islands are now detained by the Navy headquarters, there is no ship that can leave this place. Hearing these words, Bonnie's anger couldn't help but stagnate. During this period of time, she tried many times, but every port that could go to sea was blocked, and before she got close, I was afraid she would be discovered. Looking at Chin-yu who was indifferent, Bonnie glared and said, you're still laughing, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have to be trapped in this place, living a life of anxiety every day. Although you have great means, if you want to go out to sea, it is simply a fool's dream. Bonnie's remarks are a bit ugly, but Rayleigh and Shachi obviously agree. All eyes turned, locked on Chin-yu's body, and said, boy, if you really want to go to sea, I'm afraid we can't help you either. Hee, don't worry, it's almost time to go to sea, this time I'm here to see this girl, and Rayleigh, you lousy old man, should we leave together? Leave together? Riley was startled for a moment, then shook his head and said, I'll forget it, those guys can't find you and won't leave soon. I still like it. I drink and drink here. I have time to gamble for money. I was in a bad mood that day. I auctioned myself again to see that the unlucky guy was cheated by me. You old man, you have the courage to say this kind of thing. It's really disrespectful to the old man. You are not afraid of shame, I am too. Shachi glared and said, however, little brother, you are kind, Rayleigh. This old man has failed, but we are very curious, how do you go to sea at a time like this? In Shachi's information, Chin-yu's whereabouts could not be found, but it did not mean that he did not know the situation in the Chambord Islands. Can easily know how many navies there are in the search on Island 13. However, Because he was afraid of leaving, the Navy came to her door, but did not meet her, and finally was labeled as an accomplice with Chinyu. That's not even the Chambord Islands, the retirement place. Now Chinyu said that there is a way to leave safely, which is why Shachi is not interested. Chapter 514 Rescue. For a time, everyone's eyes were locked on Chinyu's body, and there was a little more curiosity. Hee hee, don't you believe it? You'll know when you arrive. Chinyu laughed dryly, raised his wine glass and finished drinking, patted the dust on his body and walked out the door. Looking at the back of Chinyu's departure, Bonnie gave her a vicious look and said, "It's mysterious, I don't believe that you can go to sea at such a time." "Okay, you silly girl, if you can, you should leave the Chambord Islands with that guy quickly. If you hide in this way, it will be easy to find you." Shachi spit out a cigarette and said with a smile. "Also, this little brother has a sense of responsibility. He can sneak away and come back to find you." "Looking for me?" Bonnie froze for a moment, then pouted her lips in disdain. "If my mother wants to go, I can't go anywhere. I'm a little hungry and I can't use any strength. However, I also really want to see him making a fool of himself when he can't go out to sea." Seeing Bonnie with a stubborn face, Rayleigh gave a hearty dry laugh, and followed quickly. 15 minutes later, at the port closest to Island 13. Chinyu and others were hiding in the woods, waiting for the patrolling Navy to leave. Chinyu came out with everyone. After 3 days of uninterrupted search, to cover such a large Chambord archipelago, and such a high-intensity workload, these Navy soldiers have obviously become negligent. After all, they couldn't find it for the first 3 days. In their eyes, people had already left. Right now, it's just a show, for the people of the world government to see. However, the Navy has relaxed, but there is also no sign of the ship at the mouth of the sea. "HMPH, you said take it away, Chambord Archipelago, there are no boats here, it's not the plan, let me swim away." Bonnie glared at Chinyu and said, "This sea is full of sea kings, and you are a devil fruit person." Riley and Shachi had a headache for Bonnie's carelessness, but these words made no sense. Not to mention whether Bonnie is a devil with 4 abilities, Chinyu's skeleton posture alone has already been hooked by them and the devil fruit ability. "Haha, why don't you take a gamble? If I win, you warm the bed for me. If I lose, it's up to you," Chinyu said with a dry smile. Warm the bed. Bonnie was stunned for a moment, and then those images flashed in her mind, her cheeks turned down slightly, and she bit her baby's teeth and said, "You rascal, just bet, I don't believe that you can leave. If I win, I want you to be my slave." "Slave?" Chinyu pointed to the sea in the distance with a smile and said, "I forgot that you were the slave I photographed. I bet with you, but I lost. However, you must warm the bed tonight." The inexplicable words made the people in the field startled. When he followed Chinyu's line of sight, the scene that caught the eye first shook the nerves of Bonnie and the 3. Isn't this the Chihuahai, the 9 snake pirates that is known as the female Emperor Hancock?" Bonnie couldn't help but stunned and said anxiously, "What does this have to do with you?" "The 9 snake pirates hate men the most. For a female pirate, Hancock undoubtedly gave them a breath in the sea. Although no woman will admit that others are more beautiful than herself, Hancock's ability to rank among the ranks of Chihuahai by virtue of her identity as a woman is enough for many people to look up to." However, before Chinyu could speak, Rayleigh took a sip of strong wine and said with a dry smile, "Hee hee, no wonder you can leave after swearing, so that girl Hancock came to pick you up. However, you can let her go in person. It seems that you have a good relationship with her. That girl is a bit willful, but she is also a good girl." Having said that, Rayleigh looked at Bonnie and said, "Of course, the girl around you is not bad." "Rayleigh, you lousy old man." Bonnie snapped back to her senses and glared at Rayleigh. However, there was still an unbelievable look in his eyes. Looking at the fast-approaching ship, his pupils contracted, and his eye sockets almost split. The moment before, she had sworn to belittle Chin-yu, a hooligan that only blind and ugly women would like. Now suddenly there is one who has a good relationship with Chin-yu, and does not hesitate to offend the Navy headquarters, and even the Empress of the world government. It can be said that Bonnie asked herself that her appearance was not bad, and she was considered to be a top-notch beauty in the sea. But when you think of the legendary female emperor, beauty can make men and women go crazy. She was instantly discouraged. This horse-riding man can really compare to a dead man. This slap in the face must have come too soon. Thinking of the bet just now, Bonnie could not wait to give herself 2 mouths. At the same time, on the 9 snake pirates. With 2 huge sea snakes and a tailwind, Hancock's ship apparently docked quickly. Hancock, who was standing on the bow deck, with black silk fluttering in the wind, looked at the newspaper in his hand and couldn't help clenching his hands. The degree of force, but even the phalanx is white. Sister, you should be happy, Charles Marco was finally killed. Sonia walked quickly behind her, followed by Godreau and her mother-in-law on crutches. For Hancock, in order to facilitate the rule of 9 Snake Island, the spread of news has been cut off, and even newsbirds are rare. Only the mother-in-law can get the newspaper. And the newspaper in her hand was the first time her mother-in-law got it. She still remembered the difficult and unexplainable mood when she saw the front-page news that day. Yuhi in his eyes, hot tears slipped uncontrollably down his cheeks. He fell to the ground weakly on his knees, burying his head and crying. At that moment, Hancock gave the impression that he was no longer a proud king, but a weak and powerless little girl. After lifting the shadow in his heart, he burst into tears. Hee, Hancock, I knew, that kid will never let go of the Tianlong people who hurt you. I thought he was just teaching a lesson or two, but I didn't expect that he would be beheaded in public. Filled with pride. When Chin-yu left that day, it was her mother-in-law who told him the identity of the heavenly dragon who caught Hancock that day. Chapter 515_2nd character template. The Mediator. Hancock was stunned for a moment, his cheeks slightly lowered, and he turned back with a sullen face. Throw her into the water and feed the sea kings. Concubine doesn't need any matchmaking, everyone will bow down to my beauty. Having said this, Hancock glanced at Sonia and Godreau and said, Don't hurry up, throw her down, do you plan to let the concubine say it a second time? No, sister, there seems to be a woman beside Chin-yu. Godreau couldn't help but said. What? Hancock's pretty face changed, and the moment he suddenly turned around, when the high-heeled shoes stepped on the deck, he stepped on the heavy deck with great strength. When she saw Bonnie, her pretty face sank and she said sharply, Don't let him get on the boat, or I'll kill him. The cold and stern voices echoed on the huge deck. Seeing Hancock's sudden change in temperament, the people present couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. On the same day, after learning that the 3 of Charles Marco were beheaded in public, he contacted Chin-yu by phone. It is even more so, despite the premise of not even wanting the position of Chihuahai, he came to the Chambord Islands to pick up Chin-yu. However, now that Chin-yu was refused to board the ship, the gap was a bit too big. Mother-in-law, is your elder sister's performance because of your jealousy? Godreau couldn't help but asked. However, it was soon felt that the murderous gaze was cast. Concubine, let you throw this old woman overboard, didn't you hear? Hancock said almost word by word. However, as soon as these words sounded, there was a crackling sound of space vibration behind him. Looking back in a hurry, I saw a teleportation light gate, which was quickly constructed behind it. Soon he saw that Chin-yu appeared in front of him with a stunned Bonnie. Before Hancock could speak, he saw Chin-yu's warm smile on his face, and reached out and rubbed Hancock's head. Thank you for your hard work. This is the slave I rescued in the auction house. Hancock, you won't mind. The violent scene changed the expressions of everyone on the deck. Gadru and Sonia hurriedly stepped forward, hurriedly opening their mouths to say something, but the sight of the scene subverted their cognition again. No, no, the concubine came to the Chambord Islands only to repay your kindness, and can you move your hand away? Hancock lowered his head slightly and said weakly in a soft voice. There is no domineering just now, and the ferocity of killing Chin-Yu. If it is said that Hancock feels to them now, it is completely like a little girl. Mother-in-law, is this jealous? Gadru couldn't help but ask back. Mother-in-law glared at me and said, I've been poured into the ecstasy soup, so why don't you hurry up and clean up a room? It's 2 rooms, you dead old woman, why are you still on the boat? Hancock suddenly shouted angrily, for the concubine, throw her into the sea to feed the fish. Looking at Hancock who was snoring, Chin-Yu touched the tip of his nose helplessly, looked at Bonnie and said, stay in the room for the time being, don't run around, wait until you leave the Chambord Islands. Seeing Chin-Yu who turned around and was about to leave after leaving those words, Bonnie still couldn't recover. In normal times, Bonnie would definitely be unable to look away when she saw Hancock. Compared with Hancock, who has the ability to sweet fruit and has an extremely seductive charm, she is obviously inferior to her appearance, and more like an empress who can only be seen from afar and cannot be touched. However, Hancock, who has a cold and arrogant taste from his bones, is as docile as a kitten in front of Chin-Yu. Bonnie wouldn't believe it if they were not related. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, the first character template, Ains Ul Gong, the fidelity has reached 50%. The system's ethereal prompt sounded. Chin-Yu's brows couldn't help but twitch, looking a little surprised. However, when I recalled how I acted all the way on the Chambord Islands, I couldn't reach 50%. I am afraid that Chin-Yu will doubt life. Moreover, Uchiha Chin-Yu's strength has reached a bottleneck now, and he would like to know what rewards will be unlocked when he reaches 50%. Ding dong, randomly selected, the first host can further disarm Ains Ool Gong's ability. Second, get a new character template. 2 system prompts sounded again. Chin-Yu's expression changed slightly, revealing a hint of surprise. Right now, he used his status as the Bone King to make a lot of noise in the city. The following pursuit by the Navy headquarters is absolutely inevitable. Moreover, after a period of understanding, Chin-Yu clearly knew that the fidelity of the Bone King had increased and had reached a bottleneck. This time, perhaps, I can improve my own strength through 50% fidelity. But it also means touching the ceiling. If there is no specific means of coercion, it will not only be difficult, but also take a long time to continue to improve. Under the combination of various factors, Chin-Yu became interested in the second template. After all, the Bone King has already made a name for himself, and if he makes some small things, the shock will not be too big for this world. But if you use a new character template to increase your influence in this world, this is undoubtedly a shortcut. Thinking of this, Chin-Yu's thoughts flowed, and he immediately issued an order. Second choice, unlock new character templates. Ding dong, please wait a moment, host. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, get the second character template. The prompts of the system echoed one after another in Chin-Yu's mind. I just felt a darkness in the sea of consciousness, and the next moment I reacted, and there was obviously a new attribute page in my consciousness. Looking at the character descriptions above, as well as the unruly and cold expression, Chin-Yu's expression couldn't help but stagnate. The characters unlocked this time can be said to be the same king. Sister, something is going wrong. Kikyo saw naval ships approaching from all directions, and the leaders were Akainu and Kayabu. Gadru's urgent cry sounded suddenly, completely breaking the silence on the ship. All of a sudden, the deck became agitated, and the hurried footsteps echoed endlessly. Although, when Hancock made such a risky decision, they had expected that they might encounter the pursuit of the Navy. But in their eyes, this kind of thing can be fooled by the title of Chiwahai. However, at the moment, two generals are leading the team in person. Whether the title of Chiwahai can be brought into play is another matter. If they were to discover that the great skeleton demon, who had been making waves in the Chambord archipelago, was on board, not only would the location of Chiwahai be lost, but even the Amazon island country occupied by the 9 snakes would be regarded as a thorn in their side. Chapter 516 _ Warm Bed. Sister, what should we do now? Godru was anxious. They have confidence in Hancock's strength, but this time it's two generals, unless they are willing to expose Chinyu's existence and fight together. Otherwise, with a Hancock alone, I am afraid it will be difficult to get out. HMPH, what concubines do will not be blamed, because concubines are the most beautiful. Hancock snorted coldly, and said, pass on the orders of concubines, and everyone will enter a state of battle. Once the Navy dares to push through, they will be terminated for me. As for Akainu and Kizaru to be handed over to the concubine, Chinyu has done a lot for us. If I can't repay my kindness now, I, Hancock, have no face to appear here. At the end, there was a hint of awe-inspiring taste between the words. Lord Hancock, you're right, if you can't repay even grace, we women can't raise our heads. This time, Lord Chinyu helped Lord Hancock to avenge his revenge. We must do our best to protect his safety. As long as Lord Hancock gives an order, we are willing to die. On the huge deck, the crew instantly entered a state of mad love. The pink peach heart in those eyes gave people a feeling of going through fire and water. Hearing this unanimous shouting, Chinyu frowned and exited from the space of consciousness, but when he entered the scene, his expression froze for a while, and said, why did you take off all your clothes and hide on my bed? If you are sleepy, then you are out of luck, and there are entangled guests. Tired. Bonnie looked at the clothes scattered on the ground, her expression couldn't help but stagnate. She said with clenched teeth, have you forgotten the bet just now? I, Bonnie, would like to admit defeat. Didn't you say you wanted me to help you warm the bed? You weren't kidding, were you? Looking at the resentful Bonnie, Chinyu touched the tip of his nose helplessly and said, actually, I'm really joking. Even if it's really a bed warmer, it's just a simple bed warmer. Very simple bed warmer. Bonnie was startled, and then roared with resentment through Yuhi's cheeks. Are you saying that I'm not innocent? You men, I don't believe you, you will be innocent. Hysterical voices echoed in the room. However, before Chinyu could continue to quibble, a knock on the door had hurriedly heard, and then the door was pushed open. Seeing the sudden scene, Bonnie quickly clenched the quilt on her body. Cough cough, it seems that my old woman is here at an untimely time, but you are really restless, Hancock is outside. Seeing this situation, the mother-in-law couldn't help coughing dryly. However, I can't take care of your young people's affairs so much. You should have heard that Kizaru and Akainu are here. I hope you have some solution. Chinyu was obviously too lazy to explain her mother-in-law's beautiful misunderstanding. Bonnie covered the quilt and stopped talking, but she met Chinyu's gaze, her nerves tightened, and she said in a hurry, what do you want to do? What are you doing? Chinyu said with a playful smile. You are so smart, you should know it without saying. Don't put on your clothes first, I have a way to get out. What, without clothes? You rascal! Exclamations echoed in the cabin room. However, in the face of the internal toss, the outside world does not know and has no time to pay attention. The atmosphere on the huge deck of the ship was extremely depressing. Hundreds of 9 female warriors were guarding the edge of the ship's deck, and the 3 Hancock sisters were standing at the bow of the ship. The expression of the naval fleet that gradually approached and formed an encirclement became solemn. General Akainu, our encirclement has been completed, and everyone who is good at observation hockey has already launched a net in the vicinity. If the great skeleton demon appears, it will definitely be impossible to escape. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel walked over quickly, and even he had a tired look on his face during the 3-day search. Just as they were looking for Chin Yu's whereabouts and fell into a bottleneck, the ship of the 9 Snakes pirates suddenly entered the waters blocked by the Chambord Islands, giving them a glimmer of hope. HMPH, this Hancock has always been arrogant. According to Bastio's information, when the great skeleton demon appeared that day, he also encountered the ship of the 9 Snake pirates. No matter whether they are related or not, we must not let go of any possibility. Sex. Akainu shouted coldly with a gloomy face. During this time, 3 Tianlong people were beheaded in public in front of 2 admirals of the Navy. The pressure exerted by the Navy headquarters and even the world government made Akainu feel a little overwhelmed. The appearance of the 9 Snake pirates has undoubtedly become his only chance. Haha, Akainu, I advise you to hurry up and let them return to the cabin, Hancock girl, but there is a lot of trouble. A dry voice came from the cabin. It wasn't long before Carp was seen walking out with a donut in a bowl. Looking at Garp with a smile on his face, Akainu's face sank and said, HMPH, you semi-retired person, a mere pirate, is it worth us avoiding? Oh, I've already mentioned that suggestion, don't say that the old man didn't have the strength to go back. Carp didn't take it to heart, and put 2 donuts in his mouth. Before the words were finished, there was a commotion in the field. It's so beautiful, is this the pirate queen Boyahan Cook? I heard that when I saw it, I was fascinated by it. God, my eyes are full of her. That cold and arrogant expression and condescending gaze are almost 1,000 times stronger than my yellow-faced mother-in-law. No, I should say 10,000 times. I can't do it, I'm going to faint with happiness. No, if Lord Hancock, let me die, I am willing to die for her now. The crazy words that sounded one after another made Akainu's expression change slightly. For the invitation of Chiwahai, there is no need for him as a general. Moreover, for Akainu, who believes in absolute justice, he has absolutely no intention to understand a so-called Shichibukai. In his eyes, he can't wait for the so-called Chiwahai to make a mistake and then punch one at a time. However, it was precisely for this reason that when he looked at the subordinates who were full of peach hearts and looked like a demon, his face suddenly changed drastically, and he shouted in a hurry. Return them all to the cabin. However, in the face of these remarks, the Navy soldiers on the deck who were in a daze were obviously indifferent. An unexpected high cold voice also sounded abruptly. Sweet and sweet. The simple 4 words spit out. At this moment, it was as if a magic sound had been poured into it. Akainu only saw that Hancock lifted his right foot slightly and leaned back. Yuhi's lips kissed, and a pink hurricane, centered on her, quickly rolled away. Chapter 517 _ Have you ever tried to be struck by lightning? Bang bang bang. The pink hurricane, centered on Hancock, quickly rolled away. Wherever he passed, the eyes were staring at the pink peach heart, and the heart was like a wild horse, about to jump out of the Navy soldier. In an instant, it was quickly petrified. That beating heart, eyes glowing with love. Facing this terrifying scene, these people seemed to be unaware. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, standing beside Akainu, also flashed a trace of panic on his face. Seeing that there were also signs of petrification on his body, he immediately panicked. Try the pain, Carp suddenly reminded. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel was stunned for a moment, and before he had time to think about it, he quickly pulled out the dagger from his waist, bit Kiba and stabbed it into his leg. PFF'd. Blood spattered, and while the hot blood splattered on the deck, the stinging pain swept through the whole body. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel could not help but groan, but under the sting, the petrification on his body suddenly disappeared without a trace. Mr. Garp, is this the devil fruit ability? Can everyone use this method to remove petrification? Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel reacted suddenly. However, looking at the full deck, the petrified Navy soldiers didn't have time to think about it, and hurried up to meet the pain in their legs. However, as soon as he took a few steps, he was stopped by Garp's detective. Stop. This method can only be done by people with good strength who can maintain their original intentions. Those who are a little weaker have already been directly confused by the minds of the soldiers on the ship. Now they are petrified. You are a little stronger, they'll be shattered too, and no one will be able to save them then. Having said that, Garp looked at Akainu and said, "You old boy, as Sengoku said, don't think about things at all, leave this to me to handle." That day Hancock joined Shichibukai, and I was also reception. Leave things to you. Akainu's face sank, and he shouted angrily, "You semi-retired person, don't forget, this time you are only responsible for cooperating with me and Kizaru to carry out the search mission. Don't forget that your identity is only a lieutenant general, let a general lead the commander. I hand over the position to you, this is to tell others that I am not as good as you. Also, I can easily solve this kind of thing." The voice fell, and Akainu's observation haki rolled back like a frenzy. Instantly covered the nine-snake pirate ship. The next moment, Akainu's face sank, and he shouted angrily, "Hancock, I'll give you two choices. First, immediately remove the devil fruit ability and let the three people hiding in the cabin get out, otherwise don't blame me for doing it. Quote. Second, I will do it myself and sink you into the sea." The awe-inspiring voice reverberated in the sky in all directions, making the faces of the female warriors of Nine Snake Island suddenly change. "Bastard, my concubine is Chiwahai, a pirate who signed an agreement with your world government. You dare to be so rude, are you not afraid of spreading the word and breaking the rules?" Hancock's face sank, and he immediately raised his right foot, leaned back, pointed at the red dog and said, "What's more, the concubine is so beautiful, no one will blame the concubine. As for the people in the cabin, it's the secret of the concubine's body. If you dare to be tough, our Nine Snake Pirates will not let anyone need it, but it will make your navy pay enough price." Jiao drink like thunder, and there is an undeniable taste between the words. However, this unrestrained confrontation made the foreheads of Sonia and Gadru also ooze hot sweat. A general may still be able to fight, but now it is not only against two generals, but also many lieutenants. Among them is Iron Fist Carp, who is known as a naval hero. From this kind of card alone, they are sure to lose. What's more, there is indeed an unspeakable secret in the cabin. "Hancock, this is my last chance for you, get out or I'll sink you." Akainu's face sank and growled angrily. However, before he could make a move, an extremely wretched voice suddenly sounded behind Hancock. "Yo, Check is making trouble, it seems that this situation is really lively, but Akainu, let me open the way." Endless golden light emerged from behind Hancock. As a person with the flash fruit ability, the ultimate speed possessed by Kizaru is obviously the best at raiding. Madara gathered in human form, the golden light in Kizaru's right hand skyrocketed wildly, quickly condensing into a golden light blade. Kong Cloud Sword. Without any bells and whistles, he went straight to Hancock's back. The violent scene shook the nerves of Sonia and Godrut. They didn't expect that the yellow monkey would put a hand in such a juncture. In the face of this close distance, Akainu also burst into flames in an instant, rushing towards observation haki, the locked room. Boom. However, as soon as Akainu approached, a dull collision sounded suddenly. The closed door of the cabin was suddenly pushed open, followed by a thunderous light like a swimming snake, passing the Akainu with lightning speed. One step ahead, appeared in front of the yellow monkey. The violent scene made everyone's faces change dramatically. In particular, the words that fell in his ears shook his nerves like thunder. "Have you ever tried being struck by lightning? Lightning fist. Boom. The golden thunder light, like a frenzy, exploded under Chin Yu's 5 fingers suddenly clenched. Without any bells and whistles, he slammed towards Kizaru head-on, and the speed was so fast that he had no time to react. After all, in the eyes of Huang Yuan, even if Chin Yu really made a move, he would definitely not escape Akainu's blocking. Looking at the rapidly expanding fist in his pupils, he hurriedly drove armament hockey without thinking about it. Boom. The thunder vibrated, and under the huge impact, there was even more violent thunder. The deck under his feet was even more overwhelmed and burst open in response. Wearing the cloak of justice and covering the whole body with armament hockey, Kizaru flew upside down like a cannonball. In the end, it hit the warship hundreds of meters away. The huge impact force caused the guardrail to shatter. However, with the help of the ship's buffer, Kizaru also quickly recovered, and displayed elementalization to completely unload the impact. At the same time, it regained its shape again and appeared on the deck. With a pair of gloomy eyes, he hurriedly looked at the person who made the shot, and said sternly, "Arrogant, I finally waited for you to come out. This time it will not be as simple as the last time, allowing you to escape easily." The hysterical roar echoed on the sea, and when I thought of that sentence, "Have you ever tried to be struck by lightning?" The tone and shame were indelible in Kayabu's mind. However, this idea just sprouted in Kasaragi's heart, and the next moment he saw the figure, his pupils shrunk suddenly. Chapter 518 _ Who the hell are you? Seeing the unusually unfamiliar figure suddenly appearing beside the Empress Hancock, Kasaragi's pupils shrank suddenly. He had seen it with his own eyes. Chin Yu was the real person outside the demon skeleton. That was the appearance of a young man in his 20s. However, the person who shot him now was more than 2 meters tall and wore a black fur coat. A golden spiky head with lightning-like scars pierced his left eye vertically. The black sleeveless short vest inside, wearing headphones, his face is full of cold and arrogant colors. "Who are you asking me?" Chin Yu snorted coldly and said, "I also want to ask, who are you, who are unscrupulous and unreasonable on other people's ships?" "You." Hancock's expression changed slightly, but he stopped talking, but saw a large warm hand rapidly dilating in her pupils. The playfulness in the depths of those eyes made her realize in an instant, and let this big hand cover her head. Feeling the familiar warmth coming from the tips of his hair, and listening to the soft words that fell in his ears, Hancock knew that the person in front of him was Chin Yu. "Although, I don't know what means he used to become like this, but when he thinks of the endless variety of means, even the Navy can play with Uchiha Chin Yu in his hands." Hancock smiled sweetly, then snorted coldly, and said, "He's my man, Laxus Dolls." "Your man." The expressions of everyone present changed drastically. In their cognition, the 9 snake pirates led by the female Emperor Hancock hated men extremely. Now Hancock, suddenly there is an official announcement that this is his man. If you don't see it with your own eyes, hear it with your own ears. I'm afraid I really doubt that the female Emperor Hancock likes the show on the broken back and acts as a girl. HMPH, I don't care who you are, come back with me today, blame it, you are at this juncture, appearing in front of my eyes. Akainu snorted coldly, the endless melt on his body under the tumbling. One step was taken. The next moment, with the help of shaving, he disappeared in place like a ghost out of thin air. Appearing again, it has come to Chin Yu's side. The violent scene made Hancock's face change slightly, and he was about to shoot. But when he saw Chin Yu's right hand suddenly lift up, the moment when armament hockey covered it, without any fancy, he directly buckled Akainu's shoulder, which was tumbling all over his body. The burning sound of Zilla suddenly sounded. Was a hint of playfulness on Chin Yu's face. "I caught you." The small voice shook Akainu's nerves at this moment. After possessing the natural system and melting fruit, a scorching high temperature, for Akainu. That's the best defense against damage. Now, however, someone, so unexpectedly fierce, dared to capture Armament Hokage's defense alone. However, before Akainu could react, a thunderous sound resounded. Boom! The golden thunder light, like a horse, penetrated from the sky, and the speed was so fast that it was difficult for the naked eye to catch. When he regained his senses, Chinyu and Akainu were already shrouded in it. The huge impact and the splashing thunder light directly caused Hancock and others to subconsciously withdraw 7 or 8 steps away. The deck under his feet was even more overwhelmed, and burst open at the sound. However, before everyone could react, Akainu's roar suddenly sounded. "You bastard, dare to tease General Ben." Boom! Under the scorching hot air wave, the fist wrapped in molten lava blasted out in the Thunderlight Jinchuriki column. PFF'd. Like a horse, Li Guang did not roam quickly in the void, but one step ahead of the fist that was entangled in molten lava, appeared on the deck of a naval warship dozens of meters away. The expression of the ghost spider stationed on this warship suddenly changed, and he was about to shoot a sniper when Akainu's roar sounded again. Canine Yuhi Lotus. The thunder in the sky dissipated, and Akainu stepped on the deck with a slightly embarrassed step. Under the endless flow of molten lava in the right hand, the fiery air wave rolled backwards, and suddenly punched out in the direction of Chinyu. Boom! The endless lava madly vented out, and instantly turned into a huge lava dog of more than 10 meters out of thin air, attacking towards Chinyu. The attack has not yet come, and an unspeakable depressing aura hangs over the deck of the ship. Looking at this violent scene, not to mention the ghost spiders stationed on the deck, even Garp's expression changed. "Akainu, are you crazy? The petrified soldiers on that ship will be shattered once they are attacked by the aftermath of the attack. When the time comes, I will not be able to save them." Garp roared in a hurry. However, at this distance, he simply didn't have time to block. The only thing he could do was to fix his urgent gaze on Chinyu. As soon as this glance fell, Garp's pupils shrank for it. In the face of the molten giant dog, Chinyu was as crazy as before. Without any idea of evasion, the 5 fingers of his right hand were suddenly clenched. The violent thunder light detonated like a frenzy, and the crackling arc splashed between the fingers. Without any bells and whistles, it slammed towards the molten giant dog. Lightning fist. Boom! The endless thunder light collided with the molten giant dog. At the moment of a slight touch, the violent electric current accumulated in the fist, as if it had obtained a vent, turned into a raging wave, and directly detonated with a tense-like gesture. The thunderbolt training, like a savage dragon, pierced through the sky. Boom! The incoming molten giant dog was instantly torn apart by the violent thunder, giving people a paper-like feeling. The hot molten lava splashed down on the sea like a torrential rain in the sky. One punch. The violent scene made the expressions of the admirals such as Ghost Spider and Flying Squirrel change drastically, and even their pupils suddenly shrank. The attack just now, if they are prepared enough, they can also resist it. It's just a far cry from the stance of punching and banging in front of him. Akainu, who witnessed this scene, was instantly gloomy to ultimate. His own attacks, being stopped again and again, and the disgrace he suffered on the Chambord Islands made him completely unable to hold his breath. The molten lava flowing all over his body, at this moment, seemed to tumble to the ultimate with his anger, and even the overwhelmed and cracked deck under his feet was scorched and sizzling. Seeing Akainu, who was about to go berserk again, Hancock's face sank, and he said coquettishly, "Akainu, you dare to run wild on the concubine again. Don't blame me for tearing up the Treaty of Chihuahua. Let the world know that your naval headquarters, and even the style of the world government, we Chihuahua, is not a call to come and go." Quote. I'm going to see how you explain to the world government. Chapter 519-4 Future Generals. Explain to the world government. Akainu's face sank, and he shouted angrily, "This general, now I'm helping the world government, I can't tolerate your nonsense." Roaring together, Akainu stepped forward with great strides, wanting to plunder again. However, as soon as he moved, he was stopped by an unexpected figure. Armament Hokage's right hand, which was covered in pitch-black ink, was clasped like lightning on Akainu's wrist, where the molten lava was flowing. Seeing this sudden scene, Akainu was stunned for a moment, and then hurriedly shouted, "What are you doing, Garp?" "What are you doing?" Garp said with a slightly gloomy face. "I just told you not to make a fuss. That kid's name is Laxus, he is the devil fruit of thunder, not the great skeleton demon. If you continue to make trouble like this, you will not only destroy the Chiwahai Treaty, but also affect the safety of other crew members," Sengoku explained. Having said that, Garp looked at Hancock and said, "What happened just now is the fault of our Navy headquarters. I hope you, little girl, don't take it to heart and remove the petrification." Naval headquarters fault. Akainu's face sank, and he shouted angrily, "Cap, do you know what you are talking about? This is hurting the face of our naval headquarters. I will report this to Sengoku in person." "You." Garp's expression sank, and he looked back at Akainu. He had already said all his good words, especially seeing that Akainu almost attacked and affected other soldiers just now. This act of disregarding the safety of his companions for his own selfish interests undoubtedly touched his bottom line. For a time, an inexplicable depressing atmosphere enveloped the deck. Seeing this violent scene, the admirals such as Ghost Spider and Flying Squirrel suddenly became solemn. The strength of the general is the naval headquarters, the symbol of the top combat power. But Iron Fist Garp, that is the hero of the Navy, if they really fight, they don't know who is stronger or weaker. But it would be embarrassing if the admiral and the Navy hero fought each other on such an occasion. Moreover, it was the first time they saw that Mr. Garp, who has always liked to play Chan Oil, would be so serious. "Enough of you." A deep voice came from the sea in the distance. Looking at the fast-approaching warship and the figure standing on the deck, Ghost Spider and others secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Garp was stunned at first, and when he saw who was coming, he took the lead in laughing and said, "Sengoku, I didn't expect you to be a fool, and you would run out. I don't care about this kind of shit, I leave it to you. Headaches go." The tense atmosphere suddenly collapsed. Looking at Garp, who slapped the dust on his body and jumped to the next warship as if nothing had happened, Akainu snorted coldly, and all the molten lava that was rapidly tumbling on his body also converged. Akainu was furious just now, and Garp suddenly stepped in, which made him lose his mind. However, in the face of the brief confrontation with Garp and the tense atmosphere, it undoubtedly became cold water pouring down on his head, which calmed his mind all of a sudden. It's just that he is not Chingzi, and it is undoubtedly impossible for him to admit his mistake in public. Now the emergence of Sengoku has undoubtedly provided both parties with a step down. Seeing the situation eased all of a sudden, Sengoku also breathed a sigh of relief. He is very clear about Garp's strength. If he really angered this bad old man and punched a big mountain, it would be a trivial matter. However, in the face of the current situation, Sengoku quickly put aside his thoughts, threw himself on the 9 snake pirates, glanced at Chin-Yu, and said, "Hancock, regarding what happened just now, our Navy headquarters is deeply concerned. I'm sorry, but it's just a misunderstanding, so I hope you can restore the Navy that was petrified because of the fruit's ability. As for the damage on the ship, our naval headquarters is also willing to pay compensation." HMPH, concubine. Hancock's face was cold, and he was about to say something. However, it was quickly interrupted by the thunder light that descended around him. Looking at Chin-Yu who appeared beside him, Hancock obediently shut his mouth, which is completely giving people the feeling that you are my man and you are in charge. "Hancock, Since Marshal Sengoku has said this, just ask for 100 million Baileys casually. Chinyu said with a dry smile. This time, Hancock rushed from the windless belt to the Chambord archipelago for Chinyu, and this thought was enough. If Nine Snake Island is implicated because of his own affairs, even the amulet of Chiwahai will be lost. This is not what Chinyu wants to see. 100 million Baileys, this is a lion's mouth. The flying squirrel's expression changed, and he couldn't help saying. After all, the cost of warships in the Navy is only about 100 million. The battle just now affected the Nine Snake pirate ship, but it was only affected on the deck. Even the most important keel was not damaged. This billion is beyond the scope of compensation. Okay, this time it was our Navy headquarters that made a mistake first. Let's make 100 million Baileys as an apology. Sengoku glanced at Chinyu, then paused and said, "Boy, you did a good job just now. It seems that you called laxus. I don't think you're like a pirate. Are you interested in joining the Navy?" The small voice, at this moment, like thunder, echoed in the sky in all directions for a long time, and there was no way to disperse. Akainu couldn't help but stiffen in midair as he took a step forward. After glancing at him with a gloomy face, he walked straight into the cabin without turning his head. Now that Sengoku is there, Akainu is only a general, and the decision-making power obviously falls on Sengoku. As for Kizaru, he has obviously regained his identity as a Hit-chan oil, and he is even more ignorant of this kind of thing. If he hadn't suffered in Chinyu's hands, he wouldn't have worked so hard for this matter. You invited me to join the Navy headquarters. Chinyu was startled, obviously not expecting Sengoku to have such plans. However, he quickly shook his head and said, "Forget it, I still like to live a free and easy life, but I don't like to serve you big bosses." Got rejected. The generals, such as the Flying Squirrel and the Ghost Spider, couldn't help but stagnate. Sengoku, who is a marshal, can invite him in person. That is a great honor. Once you join the Navy, it is absolutely possible not to mention high-ranking officials and nobles. The position of the general may not be within reach, but the position of the lieutenant is definitely enough. Especially the strength Chinyu showed just now, and in their eyes, the ability of the devil fruit of thunder of the natural system. That is the symbol of the general. Accidentally, an exception was made, and it is not impossible to promote the future admiral of the Four Seats. At present, this kind of pastry has been rejected in public, which is simply incomparable. Chapter 520 People who came out of the advanced city. Haha, Sengoku, it seems that your old face is still not enough to admire. Karp didn't know where he was. He held out a big bowl of donuts, and laughed uncontrollably. However, this kid's strength is quite good. If you are willing to join the Navy headquarters, this old man guarantees you to be a brigadier general. You don't want it. The position of this brigadier general is a bit low. Look at the admirals over there, which one didn't start as a soldier? Having said that, Garp picked his nostrils, and after he bounced the huge booger flying, he lowered his voice with a thief face and said, "You should have heard of that General Chingzi, when he debuted, be a trainee on my ship. As long as you nod your head, the matter of being a general in the future will be covered by me." Looking at Garp, who suddenly became arrogant and ran the train with his mouth full. Sengoku rolled his eyes in disgust, and said, "You poor old man, hurry up and get away from me. Boy, if you change your mind, you can come to the naval headquarters to find me. I still have things to deal with, so I will leave first." Abandoning these words, Sengoku gestured to the adjutant behind him, settled the compensation matters, and dragged Karp away. In his eyes, if Karp continues to brag, I am afraid that even the position of the Admiral of the Navy has given up. After all, naval promotion also has its own system. If it goes too far, that would arouse disapproval from others, at least those veteran lieutenants. The guy who has waited for a long time to be promoted is probably the first to stand up against it. Do not. It should be said that the old guy who hid in the boot camp and trained new recruits was the first to blow his beard and stare. After all, his students are all over the entire naval headquarters, and even the 3 current generals are top students trained by him. If you let him know, a latecomer, without orthodox brainwashing training, will be promoted to Brigadier General of the Navy headquarters. That would give him Sengoku an endless one. Hancock, remove the power of the fruit, Chinyu said in a gestured way after taking the deposit from Silver. Facing Chinyu's words, Hancock's face had a hint of red yuhi, and said, "Hu-kun, concubine, go now." Looking at Hancock, who suddenly became a nymphomaniac and walked away with lotus steps, Chinyu reluctantly touched the tip of his nose and looked at the grandmother who was standing in front of the door of the cabin room and the baby nurse standing beside him. Smiled playfully. "You, what are you trying to do? Don't touch me." Bonnie's china doll-like pink cheeks suddenly turned white. Thinking of the time when he was naked and turned into a child on the bed, when the hateful guy in front of him hugged him with those big warm hands. That feeling, but almost fainted. However, Bonnie just came into contact with this devil fruit ability, and once she is rejuvenated, there is no way to remove it in a short period of time. Looking at Chinyu who was walking quickly, Bonnie screamed first, then turned around and rushed into the room. Chinyu, who witnessed this scene, couldn't help but put a playful smile on the corner of his mouth and said, "My little sister is good, my brother will take you to see the goldfish." For a time, screams sounded one after another in the huge pirate ship. On the coast of the Chambord Islands, Rayleigh and Shachi didn't leave immediately, watching the warships gradually leaving, and the 2 old faces that even he found troublesome to leave, secretly relieved. After taking a sip of strong drink with his backhand, he said with a smile, "This kid has a lot of tricks. I thought he was going to fall into the hands of the 2 old guys Carp and Sengoku, but he was fooled by him in the end." Quote, "I knew for a long time that this kid wouldn't capsize in the gutter." At the beginning, Rayleigh and Shachi were also shocked that Chinyu could let Hancock come to meet the rescue in person. At the same time, he also believed that Chinyu and Bonnie could leave smoothly when Chiwahai came forward. But it never occurred to me that not only the 2 generals Akainu and Kizaru, but also Garp and Sengoku were there. Under such a lineup, even the Roger pirates in their heyday felt a headache. Not to mention, Chinyu and Hancock. Cut, who was so nervous just now that he even crushed 2 jugs. Shachi spit out a cigarette and rolled her eyes. If it wasn't for that kid's skill, things would have turned around. "I think, you, an old man who has lived in seclusion for a long time, may have been unable to restrain himself from taking action." Speaking of this, Shachi's face became more solemn, and she looked at Rayleigh and said, "Old man, is that kid really that important? Compared to Roger's son, is it more important?" Ace's life experience, to others, may be a mystery. But for Shachi and Riley, it wasn't. At least they met before Roger died. Facing Shachi's questioning, Rayleigh's face became bleak. After a brief silence, he shook his head and said, "I don't know either. Originally, when I stayed in the Chambord Islands, I wanted to see how high Captain Roger's son could go. When I heard that he became the new king, offered a reward of 400 million, and threatened to take the head of the Whitebeard, his madness made me very satisfied. After all, this kind of madness has not appeared in this sea for a long time, and I have only seen it in Captain Roger." Looking at Rayleigh, who fell into reminiscence for a while, Shachi couldn't help but be silent. Imagine a pirate group that was in its prime and at its peak, and it was dissolved when it was said to be disbanded. He also had to watch his captain be beheaded in public. The feeling of aggrieved and lost cannot be described in words at all. The only thing we can do is to pin our hopes on the next generation. Now, after waiting for more than 10 years, I finally got a glimpse of hope. I didn't expect it to be overturned all of a sudden. Old man, you probably didn't expect that there will be people who are crazier than One Piece in this sea. Shachi squeezed out the cigarette in her hand, looked at Rayleigh and said, however, you don't need to worry, it's only been a year since Sigyn set foot in the sea, and he still needs time to grow. Also, you have already let Whitebeard guide Ace personally. In time, he will become a big pirate on his own and inherit Captain Rogers' will. Don't forget, no matter how young that kid is, he is an existence that came out of the Advanced City. He can be imprisoned in it, and he can't detect the slightest trace of existence. The Navy headquarters and even the world government attach so much importance to it. People are definitely not ordinary people. It can be said that the sea will not be peaceful in the future. When these words fell, Riley nodded silently. As Shachi said, although Ace grew up in Garp's training, compared with a person who came out of the more terrifying Push City Grand Prison, it is clear who is stronger and who is weaker. The only thing that can compete next is who will grow faster.